Okay, we are back. How long have we been gone for?
It feels like maybe 2 months. Two. Let's say. I would say
Yeah,
like
it's been
a
a
month
little
and a
bit.
half, 2 months.
Okay, according to my channel, last stream was 17th of August, so we're damn near 2 months.
Yeah.
But we are back, season 3 of the Hoop Talk podcast, season 2 with you, John D. Welcome back. How has your off season been? How's it been having a little 2 month hiatus?
It was good, man. It was good. The off season, I get to catch up on shows. Like I don't watch a lot of shows during the season because I'm just watching basketball. For those who watch Love Is Blind, been deeply on that. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I've been able to catch up on some shows, catch up on some sleep. I needed it. I needed it. But hey, we're back for season 3. I'm excited. I'm sure people in the chat are excited. So let's get to it.
Yeah, basketball. Well, NBA season is upon us. I don't want to say basketball season if you are out the loop. The WNBA season just concluded, but NBA season is back upon us. I'm excited. I think the season starts in about 10 days. I think about 10 days. So before the season starts, I wanted to get our Eastern Conference and Western Conference previews. So this week will obviously be East. Next week will be West. Last time we did this, we actually struggled to get through all 15 teams because we ended up talking about some teams for like 25 minutes. So hopefully
Exactly.
this time we've improved our jobs and we're going to be punctual, get out of here within the hour and a half that we normally allot for the pods. But today we're going to be going through all of the Eastern Conference teams. I have a tier list set up. We're going to put all of the teams in their categories that stem from contenders all the way down to tanking. And then if we have time, we'll order them within those tiers based on who we think are the best teams in the East. Blah, blah, blah. Before we get into it, I want to ask you, because I was struggling with this. Are we assuming health for these teams, or are we going with probabilities, if that makes sense?
I want to assume health. It's kind of hard. We all know for which team, but I'm gonna assume health because I'm sure you've seen it. I've seen it. We saw the video on Twitter. Yeah, I'm gonna assume health. I'm gonna assume health.
I'm going to assume health within reason, if that makes sense. I'm not going to just start projecting. Oh, imagine imagine Cade gets hurt. The Pistons are going to be in the lottery. I'm not doing that. But also for a team, elephant in the room, Philly. I'm not going to assume Joel Embiid plays 82 games and is healthy the whole year. I'm not going to assume that either. I'm going to take into account what's likely, but also assume the ideal outcome within reason. That's kind of the way I'm approaching this. So every team is going to be at a different level of health, but they're all going to be optimistically reasonable, I guess will be the word I'll use. Optimistically reasonable. But anyway, we're going to start with the Atlanta Hawks. It's actually a team that's quite interesting for many reasons. One being that I think they've had one of the better off seasons. But
Yeah.
John D, why don't you tell me how you feel about the Atlanta Hawks going into this season?
Obviously, I think this is the best team Trae Young has had around him, with the level of play finishers and defense that they brought in with guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think Zachary Risachet is an underrated defender, especially as a rookie. You still have Dyson Daniels, and I really do like the way they can play in transition, the depth they can go to. Obviously, I do think Trae Young can be a little bit more efficient this year, just with having more spacing and more guys that can handle the ball. Um, One of my questions would be like the ball handling without Trae on the floor. Now I know that may not be like a lot of minutes with Trae off the floor, but I still do think that is a concern, especially in a playoff setting. Um, Especially losing Karis LeVert. I think Karis LeVert was somebody that was utilized with the ball in their hands a lot more when Trae wasn't on the floor. So that would be a question for me. Maybe Nickeil Alexander-Walker is going to be the guy to handle the ball when Trae isn't on the floor. But um, another concern of mine would be their front court with Kristaps Porzingis and Jalen Johnson. The injuries with those two. These guys are known for missing chunks of the season or majority of the season. So I would love to see them fully healthy in the playoffs. Um, if they're fully healthy, I do think this is a team that can make a run in the postseason. I do think Trae Young is one of the best floor generals and passers in the entire NBA. I expect them to have a fast-paced offense, to be one of the better transition offenses, and to have a big leap in defense. And I do think Trae Young is one of the better floor raisers in the NBA. So I can expect them to be like top six playoff lock.
Top 6 playoff lock. Oh, for anyone wondering, the categories we do have, I should have made this clear. We have contenders, kind of explains it how it is. Team that we think has a realistic shot of winning a championship. Top 6 lock means basically a team that we think will be in the playoffs without the need of the play-in. Play-in means a team that can make the playoffs but through the play-in. Lottery is a team we expect to miss the play-in. And then tanking is a team that isn't even trying to compete. They're in the AJ DeBanza, Cambuza, Darren Peterson sweepstakes. That's kind of how we've categorized it. We're going to do the same in the West next week as well. Okay. The Atlanta Hawks is an interesting team. I'm very intrigued by their acquisitions. I think Porzingis, from what I've seen in preseason and what I saw at Eurobasket, strikes me as what's going to be an amazing acquisition for Trae Young. I would say him and Jalen Johnson are probably going to be the two best teammates he's had. No disrespect to DeJounte or John Collins, but Jalen Johnson looks primed to take a huge leap. I think he's 22. And Porzingis is just, as a stretch big, someone who can attack mismatches, pick and pop threat, can play in the middle of the floor, just looks excellent next to Trae in theory. I've had my eye on a couple of the preseason stuff, looked at some of the film, seen a couple people on Twitter who follow the Hawks closely talking about they're using Trae off the ball a bit more, which is definitely something that's intriguing me. If you want to get numerical, Trae last season, I want to make sure I get these numbers exactly accurate. Trae last season was getting about 1.5 spot up opportunities a game. In the preseason thus far, 2.5. Big improvement. And I've seen some of the plays they're running to get Trae more involved off the ball. I think that's a big deal. Defensively, I like the looks of their front court, whether it be Zachary Sachet, who I think has filled out his frame a bit more, already is capable, not the most impactful defender as a rookie, as you could expect, but is definitely capable with the tools and the IQ, I think, to be an effective defender, especially as he adds strength. Jalen Johnson, I think, is a really good defender, secondary rim protector. Dyson Daniels, it goes without saying. Porzingis, one of the best rim protectors in the league. The guy I'm looking at as a potential breakout candidate, not in the typical sense, but in people are going to recognize, is Mohamed Gay. He is one of the better defensive bigs in the league in terms of what he can do mobility-wise, protecting the rim as a roamer. The issue is offensively, he's quite a ways away, but very, very impactful defender. I hope he can be in the rotation consistently next year. I like the pickup of Luke Kennard as someone who's one of the best shooters on the planet and also a really underrated passer and decision maker, especially quick decisions. So I think, along with Quinn Snyder being their coach, who I think we have to bring up, one of the smarter offensive minds, you add all of that together, I expect the Hawks to be a top 6 seed. Only thing holding them back is obviously the health of Jalen Johnson, health of Porzingis. If you get an injury that maybe you only get 45 games of Porzingis, I could see them slipping into the play-in. But realistically, I see the Atlanta Hawks being a top 6 seed. So that's kind of where I'm settled on Atlanta.
Okay.
I want to, before we move on to the next team, which I believe is the Boston Celtics, in the playoffs, what do you view Atlanta's ceiling as?
I think there is a team that they can't. I wouldn't see them being able to beat. I think they can make an Eastern Conference Finals. I definitely think they can make an Eastern Conference Finals. I can see them beating a few teams in the East, but that would be my ceiling for them. I can see a world where they make it to the NBA Finals, but they would have to have really good matchups. They would have the luck of the matchups on their side. But I would just say realistically, I would say Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, that's kind of where I would see. It's weird because I say Eastern Conference Finals, but then if no disrespect, but if a team that I don't expect is on the other side in the conference finals, then it's okay, well, maybe they can make the finals. But I have a tough time seeing Atlanta win 3 consecutive series. So I would say the conference finals, but it's all about matchups. They get favorable matchups. I definitely see this team being 48 to 54 wins, maybe 56, depending on health. And then conference finals are probably where I would draw the line in terms of ceiling. from a team that had a really good offseason to a team that I would say had a tough offseason, the Boston Celtics. Talk to me about the outlook on the Boston Celtics season.
Well, I think this would be a year where maybe the Boston Celtics try and, like, I wouldn't say just tank completely, but kind of improve some of their or develop some of their younger guys, whether it's Baylor Shireman, whether it's Jordan Walsh. They drafted Hugo Gonzalez, who I think is a huge project, but this might be the best year to do it. And then I read some reports about Jason Tatum wanting to play this season and Jaylen Brown talking about he never missed the playoffs. And it makes me think that they're trying to make a push. And I don't think this is the year for that. I mean, they do have some solid pieces. You still have Derek White, you still have Jaylen Brown, you still have Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser. You're bringing in Anthony Simons, who shot about, I believe it was 8 threes a game on about 36 to 38% around that area. But they're still going to be a 3-point heavy team, even without Jason Tatum and Kristaps Porzingis and Jrue Holiday. The only thing is, I think their defense fell off a cliff. I think they're going to miss Luke Cornett. I think they're going to miss Kristaps Porzingis. I think they're going to miss Jrue Holiday. And then you replace that with a potential backcourt of Peyton Pritchard and Anthony Simons, or Peyton Pritchard and Derek White. I'm just not as high on their defense. And I do believe that they should, I wouldn't say tank, but experiment more than going with the safer option and just trying to put out the best lineups possible to win. I do think Jordan Walsh could be somebody they could use in the future. Baylor Shireman is somebody that they can use in the future. And I think that is what they should prioritize this season. Their front court is very questionable with Chris Boucher and Luka Garza. I'm not as high on Boston this season. And to be completely honest, if Jason Tatum does miss majority of the year and decides to come back in late March or April, I don't think that helps anything. Like, Jason Tatum's a great player, but I don't think that pushes them over the top to where they can make a deep playoff run in the East this year. So we'll see what Boston does, but I do believe this is an experiment year. And we've seen over the past few years, like, gap years can be important. Like, gap years could shape your franchise for the next few seasons, and how you handle it can be very important. Like, for example, I believe David Robinson got injured and they got Tim Duncan the following year, I believe, the San Antonio Spurs. And then we look at the Golden State Warriors, where Steph Curry was out. They obtained those draft picks and they select James Wiseman, which wasn't a bad move, but I definitely feel as though some of those picks could have been moved off of to gain some more talent next to Steph. So I do believe gap years are very important, and I think Boston should be really careful with what they're doing this season.
Yeah, Boston is saying all the things that lead you to think that they're trying to get into the playoffs and then go off the anything can happen once you're there type vibe. I lean more to the side of pessimism. Obviously, they lost Porzingis, gave him up for practically nothing because of salary stuff. Same thing with Jrue Holiday, getting back Anthony Simons, someone who is a major offensive punch, but defensively leaves a lot to be desired. He's saying all the right things, like he's working on his defense and he's being taught things on defense he was never taught in Portland, but it's hard for me to project being a solid defender when you've been one of the worst in the league since you've been getting any serious minutes. And then obviously losing Jason Tatum to an Achilles tear. He's saying he wants to come back. We're seeing all the videos. People are slightly overreacting to him dunking. Like, you could probably jump once you tore your Achilles 4 or 5 months ago. But if he's looking to come back whenever he may come back, then obviously that would mean Boston are playing for something, which is tough for me to project because my biggest issue with this team is their front court. I love Luka Garza as an offensive player. I think he's really gifted. One of the worst defenders in the sport. Chris Boucher, another one who's just, he can get stocks. There's a couple times when you're intrigued by his movement, but he's a bad defender as well. Can't really defend in action. Isn't the smartest defender. Outside of stocks, isn't going to make much of an impact. Cater is probably their best big right now, and he's average at best on defense and not a very good offensive player. A far cry from Luke Cornett, for example. Xavier Tillman might actually be their best defensive big, but he's just so undesirable offensively that it's tough. And then you got Jaylen Brown, who came off what I would say is the worst year of his quote-unquote prime. Just wasn't the level that you would expect from Jaylen Brown to the standard that people hold him to. So you would need a turnaround season from him. You would need the people who say Derek White's an all-star. to actually show that all-star capability, which, no offense, I'm not the biggest believer in that.
Yeah.
It's just there's a lot of question marks on both sides of the ball. I think they're going to get threes up. And I think with the three ball, you're always going to have a chance to level the playing field in terms of talent. If you can get up a bunch of threes and you can limit opponents' threes, which is Boston's philosophy, you have a chance to stay in and around games, which I think Boston could creep around 500. I just don't know if that's in their best interest, to your point. But if I'm looking at it through the lens of the Eastern Conference, I have the Boston Celtics as a play-in team. Not saying they'll win in the play-in, but I have them being in the play-in. That's kind of where I pencil them.
Yeah.
Whether that's 7 or 10, I don't know.
Yeah, I would consider them a play-in level team. Like, to be completely honest, I wouldn't be surprised if they do fall out of the play-in towards the end of the season, because I do think there are a few teams that can make the play-in and may just be better throughout the regular season in that play-in range. But I can see them in the play-in, but I can also see them right at the 11th. I'll just stay safe and go play-in.
And then same question we asked for Atlanta. If they were to make the playoffs, where do you draw the line? Where is their ceiling?
First round. Oh, well, with a healthy Jason Tatum, I would still say first round, though. Like, they're probably going to be playing one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference if they were to make the playoffs. I would say first round.
I'm not even projecting Jason Tatum being there. I'm gonna be honest. If he is there, if he's able to look anything respectable, coming back from an Achilles in what, 8 months? That would be 8, 9, maybe 10 months. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna expect much. I still think that's reasonable to say. I wouldn't expect Jason Tatum to look like the superstar we know. So yeah, first round is probably where I draw the line, because assuming they're getting through the play-in, they're going to see one of the top 2 seeds. We'll talk about who we think that's going to be later on. But I would expect them to lose to either one of those teams personally. So I would have them as a first round exit at best next season, and then a team in the lottery at worst. I don't think they're going to tank. I just don't think you want to build that type of culture, I guess. Even if it's only 1 year, I don't think you want to do that. So I would probably just say play-in. Worst case scenario, they either get the 11 seed and just miss the play-in, or they lose in the play-in and make the lottery that way.
Who knows,
the next
with the
team, I
lottery
think,
odds, with the lottery odds, like maybe being the 11th seed is
Coops from Maine, right? Coops from Maine. Interesting. Next team, I think we know where this team's gonna go, but I'm gonna let you lead. The Brooklyn Nets. Talk to me.
I'm a little higher on the Nets draft class before or now than I was initially. I do think Nolan Traore is talented. I do think he has a really solid first step in passing feel, but he does struggle as a finisher and an outside shooter. Jaeger Demon, I do think he's going to struggle with on-ball creation, and the jump shot hasn't been there. It's been really inconsistent, I would say, throughout his collegiate tenure and early on in his NBA career. I do project it to get better throughout the season, but I just don't think it's there yet. But with how Brooklyn likes to play through their bigs, I would really like to see Danny Wolf play a lot more. He's a 7-footer who I believe he's 7 foot. He may be just under that, but he has really good ball handling and passing feel, and he can knock down a 3-ball occasionally. So I do like what they're doing. And then I think it was Drake Powell. I think Drake Powell does have some solid upside as a defender. And then Cam Thomas, I'm not going to lie, when I maybe early last year, the end of the season before that, I was really like Cam Thomas isn't efficient. He's not that good, this, that, and the third. He actually is one of the more underrated scorers in the league, in my opinion. And Michael Porter Jr. being able to get up shots the way that he does. I do think they're probably going to be one of the worst teams in the league, of course, but there is some optimism. I think Jordi Fernandez is a really good coach. I do think they can grow some of these players, and I think they're not going to go on that early season push like they did last year, where there was almost people talking about play and push. But I think the Brooklyn Nets they have their direction. I think that's where they're going to be going, and I think they're going to be a top 5 seed.
Top 5 seeds.
Top 5 pick. That's on me. Top 5 pick.
You said all of that. And now, okay. Yeah, I think we can fairly say. Well, actually, are you saying they're a tanking team, or they're just a team that's going to miss the play-in because they're just not good enough?
They're a tanking team.
Okay, I agree. I'm not the highest on their draft. Nolan Traore was someone I was very high on. a year ago. And then obviously didn't have the greatest year overseas. The scoring limitations were real, but still really good feel as a playmaker, really good ability to get downhill and get into the paint, something I value. I think does translate at the next level. I think you say his name Yegor Dioman, something like that. I'm just calling him Yegor because I don't want to butcher his name every time. So Yegor was definitely someone I thought was a reach at 8, but I see the vision with what they were going for in the draft through Ben Seraph, someone who you spoke about a lot during the draft cycle.
Oh
Another
yeah,
person
I
I'm not the
forgot all
highest on.
about Ben Seraph.
Yeah, I'm
I kind
not the
of,
highest on him.
I've kind of
Yeah,
slowed down
you
on Ben a
tapered
little
out
bit.
a little bit on that. Danny Wolf was someone who's very intriguing. You can see the archetype, someone who's like a point center type, doesn't really do many traditional center things, but does a lot of untraditional center things that intrigue people, especially now that they've seen Jokic do what Jokic does. All of a sudden, there's more draw to the Danny Wolfs of the world. 10 years ago, he might have been undrafted, but very intriguing. Drake Powell, I think, is someone who he's probably the closest to being able to play right away just because of his archetype, just a 3-and-D, good athlete, can shoot the ball, can play defense, good length at his size. I mean, at his position. Cam Thomas is someone who I just think is a good offensive player. I know a lot of talk was about the contract stuff and then some of the stuff he said. Quite frankly, he's a very talented scorer who commands a lot of attention. That's valuable on any team. That's a valuable thing to have. Now, defensively, he's bad. I'll say he's bad, but he has dropped some weight. He's noticeably slimmer. He said that was a decision that he made in the offseason. He didn't want to be as bulky as he was. He said that him being bulky was also a choice, by the way. So he's actively just choosing how he wants to play. But really gifted scorer, someone who commands a lot of attention. MPJ, one of the most gifted shooters in the NBA. Jordi Fernandez is someone who thrives off ball movement, player movement, motion. And I think that's going to be good enough to sneak a few wins against some good opponents. Overall, they're going to be a bad team. I think everyone involved knows that. But it's about stacking days, the good old tanking stuff, just stacking days, internal improvement, building good habits, all of the good stuff you say to make sure the fans don't get tired of the fact that you're going to be losing for a little while. So I think I like the direction. Well, I know the direction they're going, which is something I like. But they do still need, I think, that prospect that you can hang your hat on. Right now, I don't think they have that. And that's what next year's draft is for. They've got all of their picks back from Houston. So it's in their best interest to ultimately use this season as a tanking season, see what talent they have on the roster, see which rookies they're intrigued by, see if they are going to continue with Cam Thomas going forward with his extension stuff. So yeah, this is a big tanking season for the Nets. I think they know that. We know that. So best case scenario really for them isn't do they make the playoffs, it's do they get the number 1 pick. That's kind of it. That's the measure of success for them. It's not playoffs, and we don't really need to discuss lottery odds. But the Nets are going to be a bad team, but that's good for the Nets. So
yes,
different standards for different teams. The next team, this is actually interesting because I seen you tweet about them. I think it was yesterday. Talk to me. The Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah, man. Charlotte is going to be okay. Let me set this here. I loved Con Knipple, if that's how you say his name. I hope that's how you say his name.
Con Knipple, yeah.
I love Con Knipple throughout the draft. Loved him. And as long as LaMelo's playing, I will be watching the Hornets. They're gonna be getting them threes up. They're gonna be getting threes up. They're gonna run in transition. They're gonna throw lobs. It's gonna be one of the more fun offenses to watch. If they are fully healthy, they are going to be one of the more fun offenses to watch, in my opinion. So I'm going to be watching a lot of Hornets games. I'm not going to lie. With Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball, who can play in transition, play in pick and roll, is one of the better passers or best passers in the entire NBA. And then you bring in some really solid rookies, in my opinion. I think Sion James is somebody that can learn from a Colin Sexton because he was used as a defender at Duke. He was used as a point of attack defender where he was in and out of the starting lineup, but you knew what he was in there for. He was kind of used like, I wouldn't say how Lou Dort was used in OKC, but he was used to be that physical, bulky defender that you can throw on perimeter players to make them uncomfortable. Somebody like while you're dribbling will slap your kneecaps or something and just like make you really uncomfortable on the perimeter. And I think him playing next to a Colin Sexton, which is somebody who puts a lot of effort into almost everything he does on the floor, could be very effective for him. And then you bring in Con Knipple, who in my opinion, is a very underrated scorer. I think he's more than just a shooter. He's somebody that can put the ball on the floor, play in pick and roll, make swing passes and kick out passes and lob passes. So I do think their offense is going to be very fast paced. I do think they're going to get up and down the floor. I do think they're going to shoot the hell out of the ball. The only thing is the defense. The defense is going to be not good, in my opinion. Now they do have some players that I do think can grow defensively, like a Sion James. Don't know how much Clark Brenner is going to play. That's somebody I wanted the Lakers to draft because if he can fill out his frame, I do think he could be a very good traditional center. But I do think they're going to hang their hat on the offensive side this year. And I'm not going to say they're a playing team. But I do think they're a tanking team, but they may be one of the more fun tanking teams in the NBA. Like, if in a perfect world, they can make a plan. If that 3-point shooting sticks, that transition offense is really good, there may be a world where they can make a plan, but I wouldn't hang my hat on it. I think they're going to be a tanking team.
I would paint them as just a lottery team, just to make sure everyone's aware. Yeah,
I forgot about
tanking
that tier,
team. Yeah, tanking teams that are intentionally losing, going for a high draft pick. Lottery team that just isn't quite good enough to make the play. That's where I would. That's where I would put the Hornets. The young talent is evident with LaMelo, with Brandon Miller, with Concanipple. I do think they're all very intriguing. I like the pickup of Colin Sexton. I think he brings a level of energy, tenacity, and overall scoring ability that is very valuable in any roster. And this Hornets team need, I think, that level of fire, competitive fire is what I'll call it. I like Kalkbrenner. I think he's a really good play finisher, really good, not vertical spacer in terms of he's going to jump out the gym, but he's just so big and he has a good catch radius that he can finish pretty much anything around the rim, can play typical drop coverage, isn't the most mobile, but can play drop coverage, keep the ball in front, alter shots at the rim, like good stuff. I do fear that maybe the Hornets play a bit too fast for him.
Yeah.
Just because LaMelo is going to be running and gunning and showtime in transition. Brandon Miller the same, Miles Bridges the same. Concanipple is going to be filling lanes in transition. I love my Musa Diabate. He's just running up and down, pure energy. I like the roster. The biggest question is obviously going to be health with LaMelo. He is their franchise guy, uber talented. In the preseason, from what I've seen, he's looked better in terms of better shot selection. But it's ultimately, I think they played 2 preseason games, so you can't look too much into it. But one thing I can pretty much guarantee, they're going to be very high in the league in 3-point attempts. I know when LaMelo and Brandon Miller were both healthy, they were shooting double-digit threes. I think LaMelo shot more threes than anyone per game this season. Last season. I know Concanipple is going to get threes up. Like you said, he can do more off the bounce. He's going to draw closeouts instantly. I do think that's something that's going to happen. He's going to show his ability to get into the mid-range, play off 2 feet, play off his pivot. Got a really good mid-range game. I likened him to, I don't know if you heard this when I was on the panel, I compared him to like pre-draft Devin Booker and Jared McCain hybrids. Like just fuse them together. I think that's a lot of what Concanipple has. They have Trey Mann coming back this season. They got Spencer Dinwiddie. So they've got a lot of guard play, a lot of ball handlers. And I think that's a sign of a team that's going to be entertaining. When you have a lot of guys who can get into their bag, get creative, and then a team that's going to shoot a lot of threes, that means on any given night, there's going to be a game, I can pretty much guarantee it, where the Hornets are going to be a big team. Whoever that may be, I don't know. But there's going to be a game where they're going to be a big team. Brandon Miller's going to have like 28. LaMelo's going to have like 32. And they're going to both combine for like 18 made threes. And it's going to be like, oh my God. So I think the Hornets, if you want a league pass team, I think the Hornets is a good bet to go for. But ultimately, I think we know they're not going to win a bunch of games. If they can sneak in the 9-10 spot, that's a successful season, in my opinion. Best case scenario, they get in the play-in and they're probably going to lose. But, once you're in the play-in, anything can happen. So I'll say best case scenario, they get through the play-in. They win in the play-in and get in the first round and lose. They're going to get blitzed by whoever they see if they make it through the play-in. Realistically, I have them as a lottery team, but I can see the avenue in which they get into the play-in and then they're in a game where anything can happen. right now we have a team in pretty much every slot except contenders. But the other slots are filled up, and maybe this team is the contender. We're talking about the Chicago Bulls, Chicago native. Talk to me.
Okay.
Are you guys contenders?
No, Chicago isn't a contender, but I don't like talking about the Bulls, man. It doesn't seem like they have any real interest of like building their team to be a contender. Maybe I'm just way far off. I don't think Josh Giddey is the centerpiece, should be the centerpiece of a rebuild for this team. I do think he struggles as a shot creator and a scorer in general. But I do think they're going to be a lot worse than bottom of the plan. I do think they're going to be a lot. I think they started like maybe 20-40 this season, and then they finished the season on that crazy win streak where they beat my Lakers twice, but it is what it is. I do like Modest Buzelis and Noah Esingeh as like building blocks for the future. I do think they have a lot of tradable assets, whether that's Vooch or whether that's Io. But I don't. It's tough for me to see the direction of this team because I don't think they're Brooklyn Nets, Washington Wizards bad, but I also don't even think they're like Miami or Toronto level good either. To where they're going to be 10th, 11th, get the 7th through 9th pick again, and draft somebody solid, but not somebody that can alter their franchise. And I'm tired of driving to Milwaukee to go see good basketball. Like, I want to go somewhere closer. I have to drive an hour and a half if I want to go see an actual game in person and go see good basketball. I don't like that. I can't with the Bulls. I can't. They're so aggravating. It's so aggravating because I'm not a Bulls fan, but if the Bulls are winning, I'm happy. I'm happy for the Bulls, but I can't.
Yeah, the Bulls have been like the poster child of mediocrity for a few years, which leads me to say they're probably just going to be another play-in team. But they're like the kings of the 9-10 play-in, not even the 7-8. So it's like you're not even a playoff level team, but you're just always in the range. This year, they don't have an all-star caliber talent like Zach LaVine for the first however many games Zach LaVine played. I want to say 40 plus, but I don't know. They paid Josh Giddey. I think it was $100 million. So they're projecting that he's going to push on from the end of the season he had last year. I'm not the most optimistic, but I see the allure with a guy like Josh Giddey, a big guard who can be a really, really good passer, can get downhill, showed, especially percentage-wise, that he can shoot. Matas is who I think is their saving grace on the roster. I'm really intrigued by his upside as a help side rim protector, a versatile forward who can score, get downhill, really good athlete, really good in the open floor. And this is a team that last year played extremely fast. Kobe White was getting out in transition when Matas was there, but getting minutes. He was getting out in transition. Part of that was Josh Giddey and then Lonzo Ball being able to push pace. They still have Josh Giddey. He's able to still push pace, get outlets going. And then they're going to get up a lot of threes. I just don't think they're that good. I don't think they have really any redeeming defenders. Unless I'm forgetting someone egregious.
I think Io is solid as a defender, but I'd be looking to see what I can get for him. Like, I'll be calling the Lakers.
Of course you would. It's just that I don't have many defenders on the roster. Like Zach Collins is cool. But I wouldn't consider him. Oh, they did get Isaac Okoro. They did, yeah. Another good athlete who can play defense. Yeah. So Isaac Okoro is their best defender, probably. Like, this is a team that I just think is penciled in to be one of the 10 worst defenses in the league, but it's going to play unfathomably fast. And then that means on a night where they get hot, they put up 138 on the Nuggets. No disrespect to them, but that was just the team I came up with. I actually think they did that last year. I think it was the Nuggets they ended up scoring like 138 against. Let me just check because I might be amazing for getting that right. Against the Nuggets, it was 129. But close enough. 120. They put out 129 both times against the Nuggets. Actually, 2-0. But anyway, Besides the points, but yeah, that's the type of capability they have. I think best case scenario they're in the play-in. Realistically, I have them just as a lottery team. I think they're going to be like a 12 seed, 32 to 38 wins in that ballpark. So I'm going to put them in the lottery. Do you agree with that?
I agree because we know where they should be, but they're like, you know what, Chicago, we're gonna show up to the games anyway. That's the worst part. We're gonna show up to the games.
They've been number one in attendance for a little while.
Yeah, we show up to
the last 5 years. Yeah, I think it's like the last 5 years. The Bulls are number one in attendance. So yeah, Bulls fans, I don't think it's going to be a good year again for you guys. Yeah, another year where you guys seem to be directionless. Best case scenario, I think, is you just get a breakout from Matas. Noah looks really good as a rookie. Josh Giddey is worth the money. And maybe some contenders come calling around the deadline for guys like Isaac Okoro, maybe a Kobe White.
I hope the Lakers do.
That's best case scenario, in my opinion, for the Chicago Bulls. The next team on the agenda, I think this is the team that can go into the contenders category, but I'm gonna let you decide. The Cleveland Cavaliers.
100%. And the Cavs are a team not much people are talking about. I think the Cavs are still a really good basketball team. I loved the pickup of Lonzo Ball. If Lonzo Ball can hoist that Larry O'Brien at the end of the season, I'm cool. I'm still a guy that is a big Lonzo believer. But I will say, though, I think it's time for Evan Mobley to be the best player on this basketball team, definitively. He's already, I would say, top 10 defender in the NBA. He's gotten better as an offensive player, as a mismatch attacker, ball handler. I wouldn't say he's a good three-point shooter now, but you did see the improvement throughout the season. I still like the backcourt of Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. This past season was like the first year I was really on board with that. I always thought Evan Mobley should have been the full-time 5. I still think he can be a full-time 5, but I can understand wanting to keep Jared Allen. There was a lot of plays or possessions in the postseason where Evan Mobley was at the top or playing at the top in defensive possessions, and they had like maybe Jared Allen protect the rim towards the back line and things of that nature. I do like the fact they always have a pick and roll tandem on the floor together, whether it's Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley or Darius Garland and Evan Mobley or Darius Garland and Jared Allen. But I think this team is, I don't know if I'm crazy to say like they're head and shoulders the best team in the East, but I think that's where I'm at. I still like Dean Wade and his size and what he can bring on the defensive end, what Lonzo can bring on the defensive end, how he'll be able to push the pace, and still quietly be one of the best passers in the league. I'm really high on Cleveland, and I definitely have them as contenders. And I think I only have 2 teams as contenders in the Eastern Conference. So,
only 2. Interesting. Yeah, this is a no-brainer contender to me. Spoiler alert, I think it's the best team in the East. I think the addition of Lonzo Ball is, if it works out, if Lonzo's able to stay healthy and staying on the court. Last year, he was only dealing with wrist issues, which gives me optimism. It wasn't recurring knee issues, which is obviously what he missed the previous 2 years for. It was wrist issues, which I think is just something that, I don't want to say it's a freak accident when you're dealing with someone injury-prone, but it gives me reason to be optimistic that Lonzo's knee issues are somewhat behind him, as long as you're cautious throughout the regular season. I'm not saying playing 38 minutes a game, back-to-backs, but be cautious, but I do think he is really, really good. I think because he missed so much time and a lot of people aren't watching Chicago, I think people just go in automatically with the assumption that, oh, Lonzo's not that good of a defender anymore. He's still really good on defense. He didn't look as mobile as he did prior to the, was it 2022? He doesn't look as mobile as he did in that monstrous 22 season. But even then, like, the thing about Lonzo that made him so special on defense wasn't that he was the quickest laterally and he was able to stay with small guards. I would argue that was probably one of his biggest weaknesses. It was everything from the IQ department, which is still there. His ability to dissect plays and early rotate or get deflections, get steals, be a really good rim protector for a guard. Showed a couple plays at the rim last season. I was like, Lonzo got up. very impressive.
He
I know
used
they
to do
showed
that
that
in Chicago.
yeah, he got a couple. He got
That's a
like
rep.
2 dunks last year, and everyone showed that. But I was like, I remember like there's a couple times where he met people at the rim, and I was like, he
Exactly.
jumped higher on that than he did on the dunk. But no one cares when he does that. Someone who's shown that he can shoot the three, especially off the catch at a high clip. One of the quickest decision makers in the NBA, whether that be in transition or in the half court as a connector. I think that's going to be huge for this Cavs offense, where if Darius Garland drives and then he draws multiple and then Lonzo gets the ball on the kick out and then people rotate to him, he can make that quick decision, whether that's to a dive in Evan Mobley out the corner or Jarrett Allen in the dunker spot. Lonzo has great feel for lobs. So just being able to have another person who can make those decisions without compromising your size or your defense, because Ty Jerome could do that. He could fill that void last year, but he's one of the most athletically limited players in the NBA. And I think you see that as you get further in the playoffs where teams are picking at your weaknesses. Having Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, and Ty Jerome on the court simultaneously, yeah, you might have 2 really good defensive bigs, but you have 3 very clear mismatches, which I think can hurt you. Now having Lonzo, I don't think you have that mismatch. I think he's someone who can be a really good point of attack defender, but is still probably best away from the ball. Someone who can guard multiple positions, versatile, and then offensively can just fill whatever role you need. The only issue is obviously he's replacing Ty Jerome. He doesn't have the same half-court creation that Ty Jerome did. In fact, he's quite limited. Like, you can't expect him to run pick and rolls and create for himself. He doesn't have much of a mid-range game or a floater game to get to. His scoring is going to be pretty much dependent on guys getting him open for spot-up threes, the occasional cut where he can collapse the defense and find guys. But I just think he helps them a lot in the playoffs. But the biggest question I have for the Cavs is just, are they going to be healthy in the playoffs? DeAndre Hunter got hurt last year. Mobley got hurt. Garland is yet to be healthy in the playoffs. And I feel Garland is so much better than what people think he is. And it's because he's never been healthy in the playoffs. So as far as people are concerned, he's just been bad in the playoffs both times he's been there. But I just think Garland is really good. Really good offensive player. Really good handle. Really good at getting into the teeth of the defense. Amazing touch on floaters. Mid-range jumpers from 3. Can get to the rim, isn't the most effective finisher, obviously because of his size, and he's not an over the rim finisher, but really good passer, one of the better passers in the NBA, especially out pick and roll. I just think Garland is really good, who's had really bad injury luck. But if this Cavs team is healthy, I expect them to be contending for the championship. I think they're the best team in the East. Best case scenario, that's obviously me saying, best case scenario, they win a championship. Worst case scenario, injuries come back for them in the playoffs, whether that be Lonzo or Garland or DeAndre Hunter. Second round exit. I can see them in a 1-4 matchup, depending on the team. Maybe they get out physicaled. I don't know if out physicaled is a word, but everyone knows what I mean. Yeah, maybe they get out physicaled. They can lose in a second round tough matchup. So that's probably the range I have. Second round exit, worst case scenario, NBA championship, best case scenario. What about you?
Yeah, I would say best case scenario, they win a championship. Worst case, like you said, they just go through another postseason where they're not healthy. And question for you, if they go through another underwhelming season where whether they're hurt or they just lose, do you think it's time to maybe start looking at some changes within the roster construction, or do you think you run it back one more year?
I've been on the side of this backcourt is too small for a while. And every year they keep winning. I mean, they keep losing. It makes me look more right. But I don't think they're losing because the backcourt is too small. So I'm not victory lapping it. But I do think the backcourt is too small. I think we're at a point where you have a 6'1 guard and a 6'3 guard, let's say, with Donovan Mitchell, both playing heavy minutes for you in the playoffs. No matter how much they both compete, because I will give them credit. Garland competes on defense. Donovan Mitchell is very capable, especially in the passing lanes. He has long arms. You are at the end of the day playing with 2 really small players in a league that is attacking mismatches consistently. And I do think that you are going to run into, in this NBA, there's going to be teams that can just, quite frankly, attack that. Now, can Cleveland overcome it? Yes, I think that's why they're contenders still. But best case scenario, you don't want to have those mismatches on the court in the first place. And unfortunately, they're going to. So I would say if they do lose next year, and especially if like Darius Garland is hurt again in the playoffs, I would probably be at that point be willing to move off of Darius Garland. Not because I don't think he's extremely talented. Not because I don't think he's an all-star caliber player. I think he is. I think he is extremely talented. I just don't know if it's in the Cavs' best interest to have 2 small guards in their backcourt. So that's probably what I would look at. And I am still team Evan Mobley is a full-time 5, but I have no problem with him playing the 4-5 with Jarrett Allen. They've got good synergy. I do think Mobley is maximized at the 5. But if the Cavs are still able to be really good and have the luxury of having 2 bigs who can alternate minutes and giving you 48 minutes of quality center play, that's still a good situation to be in. And I think Jarrett Allen's on quite a good contract for a guy of his caliber as well. So I wouldn't be rushing to make that move. But if you want to really maximize Evan Mobley, I think it gets done at the 5. But Garland or Mitchell, depending, would be probably the first people out because of the limitations I see with the backcourt. But if they can overcome it, all power to them. And I think they're entirely capable of doing that. The next team is... This team is actually going to be interesting. The Detroit Pistons. Talk to me about the Detroit Pistons.
I think, I actually wanted to start with this because I do think this has been something I've been thinking about a lot. I think people talk about Amen Thompson and then like forget about Asar. And it's really like, it bothers me a little bit because I do think Asar is the better defender, but I do think Amen is the better offensive player. But I don't think the gap is as big as a lot of people make it seem to them, both of them as players, to where I think Asar is still a really good player. He's good in transition. He's a really good defender as well. I like him at the point of attack. And I do think he's a little stronger than Amen to where he can have a little bit of a stronger base when guarding people and dealing with physicality. It's not that big of a gap to me, but I do think Asar is better in that department. But as far as the Pistons, I did really like the pickup of Duncan Robinson and Karis LeVert. I think Duncan Robinson kind of brings that shooting that Malik Beasley did, but he also is a solid playmaker as well. And I think he can play in 2-man games with Jalen Duren as well, somebody that can roll to the rim, rebound, and make short roll decisions. I think Cade is looking to improve this season. Some of the things that I would look at would be the turnovers, the finishing around the rim, and just becoming a better pull-up shooter if that's where he's going to be relying on, especially out of the pick and roll. But I do think this Detroit Pistons team is good. Like, I do think we're finally in a realm where the Pistons can be expected to make the playoffs. Bringing back Jaden Ivey after missing majority of the season is going to help a lot, especially with Cade being off the floor, having another ball handler, whether it's Jaden Ivey, whether it's Karis LeVert, because they did lose Dennis Schroeder to the Sacramento Kings, I believe. But I would see them, let's see, if I think about it, I would see them as a top 6 team in the Eastern Conference. I think they're a top 6 caliber team. I do think there's a world where they may slip to 7, depending on what my 4 and my 5 and 6 would possibly be throughout the regular season. But I think the Pistons are capable enough to make the playoffs to where if they make the play, and I do see them just winning the play-in game because I think they will be better than the teams that would be in the play-in. But I think Cade's going to get a lot better. Hopefully he plays more in the post, just being extremely strong and a taller guard. I would like to see him play in the post more because we saw him playing in the post throughout the regular season. I think Ron Holland can also be a good defender for this team. I think he has the build for it. I think he has the athleticism for it. I still think he's really good just as like a cutter, somebody that can play on the defensive side, maybe a rebounder if he can get better at that as well. I think Asar is one of the best defenders in the league, and that's going to show this season again. I think they're a top 6 level team.
I agree. I'm really high on Asar Thompson. I think he's one of the best defenders in the NBA, regardless of position, but at the wing, especially one of the best defenders in the NBA. I think Jalen Brunson hitting that game winner over him definitely led to people, I think, underrating his overall defense. I said the other day, I think Duncan Robinson is an upgrade on Malik Beasley. That got some pushback, obviously, because Malik Beasley had a hell of a year and not taking anything away from him. But I do just quite frankly think Duncan Robinson is the better offensive player because of the playmaking aspect, the ability to come off DHOs and create for his bigs. And he was doing that with Bam as a lob partner. Now, Jalen Duren, I would argue, is a bigger lob threat than Bam. So I think that opens up more opportunities for him, for both of them. Also, just providing Cade with the spacing that he obviously would thrive with. One of the more gifted mid-range scorers in the NBA. We hope that he's improved as a three-point shooter. The biggest issue I have with Cade as a scorer is just the rim stuff, whether that's efficiency or just overall shot selection down there. Got to be able to draw more fouls. That would be ideal. Last year, I think Cade was 53% at the rim. I checked these numbers last week because I think Who asked? Someone asked for the numbers, and Cade's numbers were underwhelming to say the least. I want to get them up so I don't lie to the people or give them false numbers. Bear with me. Cade Cunningham at the rim last season. Bear with me. He was 52.6% at the rim and 50% on layups overall. Just bad numbers, quite frankly, especially for a guard of his stature. If he's able to get that number up anywhere close to league average, we're looking at a major spike in efficiency. Already one of the better mid-range scorers. You spoke about the post-up stuff, which is really intriguing, an extra dimension to his game. If he's also able to shoot 5 threes a game at 36, 37%, we're looking at someone who's able to average 27, 28 points on solid efficiency. I'm not asking for KD efficiency, but if you can just be solid 58, 59 true shooting, that elevates your ceiling and your floor. Really good playmaker. You got to cut down on the turnovers, obviously. But one thing that I think is huge is that he was heavily burdened with pretty much all of Detroit's playmaking last year. So I think adding Karis LeVert is huge. Adding Duncan Robinson is huge. Maybe using Asar Thompson's ball handling more. He's someone who's able to get downhill and kick out. He's not the greatest ball handler, but using his athletic traits can be useful. Jalen Duren has really good feel as a passer, especially in the short roll. Maybe using that a bit more. I do think this is a Pistons team that has the capability to have multiple good passers, multiple good decision makers. And then with Cade's ability to just raise the floor of that team while being a solid defender, this is a team that has the makings, in my opinion, of a top 10-ish defense, above league average offense. So we're looking at maybe an 8th ranked defense, 13, 14 ranked offense. That does sound to me like a top 6 seed. I do have hesitations about them in the playoffs, and that does stem to Cade's turnover stuff. I do think that's a concern when it comes to winning the possession battle, which I think is a huge part of the game at this point. But they're able to counteract that by being a really good rebounding team, whether that be Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart's good on the offensive glass. Not so much the defensive glass, but on the offensive glass, he's capable. Asar Thompson will crash. So the rebounding will be good. We're projecting a jump from Cade. Jaden Ivey is kind of you don't know what you're getting from Jaden Ivey. I've heard a lot of people be a lot more optimistic on him than I am. My concerns with Jaden Ivey are, quite frankly, that although he's really good at getting to the rim, amazing first step, he's also one of the worst finishing guards in the NBA. The numbers bear that out. The eye test will bear that out if you're watching. For reference, he was even worse at the rim than Cade was last year. He was 51.8% and 48.6% on layups. And with his athletic tools, that's pretty much unacceptable. So if he can figure that out, be more under control at the rim, that's his biggest issue, I think, is just a lack of control. Then I get a bit more optimistic about what you can have with Cade and Jaden Ivey in the backcourt. But yeah, I do paint this team as a top 6 seed, although I don't view their playoff ceiling as that high. I have a hard time. I definitely don't see them making the finals under pretty much any circumstance. I would probably paint this team as, at worst, they're a first-round exit, but a tough first-round exit. Best case scenario, they probably lose in a tough second round. I don't really see them getting to the conference finals. But definitely a second-round series where they're going 6 or 7, or maybe even on a really competitive 5 where the games are close. They ultimately just don't have enough. But second round is kind of where I draw the line for the Pistons. Are you in a similar boat?
Yeah.
Okay. The next team. Oh, another team that is going to be a big question mark. The Indiana Pacers. Talk to me about the Eastern Conference Finals representative from last year.
I still do think the Indiana Pacers are a good team without Halliburton and Miles Turner. I still think they are a solid team. I think their projected starting lineup, at least the first 4, would be Nembhard, Mathurin, Nesmith, and Pascal Siakam. I think their center, who their starting center will be
Jay Huff, probably.
Yeah, Jay Huff. I think Isaiah Jackson could get some burn as a starting center. I don't know about Tony Bradley as much, but those first 2, Jay Huff and Isaiah Jackson, may be the 2 guys I would see being stamps in their center rotation. I still think their pace is going to be good. I don't think it's going to be to the level it was last season, obviously without Tyrese Halliburton, but Benedict Mathurin is going to be somebody that they're going to be putting a lot of stock into throughout the regular season, just to see if he can become that mid-range scorer and downhill presence that he was over the playoffs, especially the way he was able to get to the free throw line and play through physicality and show signs as a defender. I know we talked a lot about Andrew Nembhard as a scorer and defender throughout last year's postseason and throughout the regular season last year. It just, the 3-point shooting concerns me because he can be very inconsistent there. But as a mid-range scorer, I do like his game there, the ability to play through physicality and the ability to create his own shot in the mid-range with the ball in his hand. And he is still a solid passer. Same could be said about Pascal Siakam and TJ McConnell off the bench. Johnny Furphy is somebody who's been really intriguing over preseason, that shows a lot of energy, can be somebody that can stretch the floor and run in transition as well. So we're going to see some minutes from him. Hopefully Jarace Walker can show that he's worth being in the rotation consistently. I do see some upside with him as a defender and somebody that can be a tool on the offensive side and the defensive side. By the way, James Wiseman, I believe, will be playing this year for the Pacers. But I still think they can be a good team. I do think they can be a good team. I think Pascal Siakam is one of the more underrated stars in the league, just as a scorer and post scorer. He's gotten better as a shooter as well and a passer, to where I can see them in the play-in, but I wouldn't have them as a top 6 team. So I would say they're a play-in team.
Yeah, the Pacers are a team where it's kind of just about, are they trying to be competitive? I think they have the makings of a team that can be. Jay Huff is a good shot blocker, albeit not the greatest defensive player, but a good shot blocker. Andrew Nembhard, obviously a really good defender. Well, last year he was. We'll see how he looks with the added offensive responsibility. We know that can take a toll on you physically. Aaron Nesmith, another capable defender. Benedict Mathurin is someone who, although not the greatest team defender, can definitely guard on the ball at a really solid level, especially with his athletic tools. Isaiah Jackson is another person who can protect the rim at a solid level. Unfortunately, obviously, coming back from an Achilles tear, it's tough to know just how ready he'll be. And then offensively, they have a lot of the same pieces. And although they lost Miles Turner, Jay Huff does similar things offensively, albeit probably even more dynamic at the rim in terms of just being able to catch and dunk with more consistency. But he can shoot the three. He doesn't have the same level of self-creation, but he is able to replicate somewhat the same value. TJ McConnell is someone who's able to get into the mid-range and create for others and score for himself. Andrew Nembhard, the biggest question is going to be, is he a playoff three-point shooter, or can he translate that playoff three-point shooting into the regular season? Because that changes a lot about this Pacers team. I think Andrew Nembhard shot 29% from three in the regular season last year, and like 40+% in the playoffs. And I think the same thing happened in 2024. Like, at some point, we're going to need Andrew Nembhard to make some threes in the regular season. Like, it's all good and well being a playoff riser. Credit to you. But at some point, we need more than 29% from three. Like, we need more, especially if he's going to be leveraged with a lot more offensive responsibilities. Johnny Furphy is definitely someone I'm keeping an eye on, just to see if he can be in the rotation. Jarace Walker is another one, someone who I'm quite high on with his ability to guard multiple positions, use his physicality. Has shown the shooting numbers are good, but it is a small sample, so I'm curious to see if, with a larger role, if he's able to translate that still. So I think this Pacers team strikes me as like the definition of mediocre. Like, we're probably looking at a team hovering around 500. Can beat anyone, can lose to anyone. I think they're still going to play the same brand of basketball, where it's about multiple ball handlers, quick decisions, getting everyone involved. It's just, at the end of the day, you don't have arguably the best decision maker in the NBA on your roster right now. So that does ultimately lower your ceiling. But best case scenario, I think this is a team that wins in the play-in and then loses in the first round quite comfortably. I don't think this team has enough to really pose a threat to the contenders in the East. So I would paint them as a play-in team, but definitely can be a fun team. Definitely a team that I think people can enjoy watching this year, especially with the young guys like Benedict Mathurin and Johnny Furphy, and see what Andrew Nembhard can do. But play-in is probably where I draw the line for them at best. Oh my God, the East is just full of these teams. The Miami Heat.
I think one of my biggest concerns, or one of my biggest questions for this team, is them missing out on Tyler Hero. I believe he's going to miss maybe the first few weeks of the season, or maybe the first month, he seemed to be their like playmaker for them last year. And then you bring in Norman Powell, who can bring in some of that scoring, but I don't think he's the level of passer that Tyler Hero was last year. Now, I'm not saying Tyler Hero is some amazing floor general passer, but I think that's going to be valuable for a team that does not have as much. I'm really high on their defense. I think Bam, Andrew Wiggins, Davion Mitchell, the improvements that I think Khalil Ware can make this season, I think all of that's going to be very valuable as well. But I don't see this team being anything further. I don't see this team being a top 6 seed. I do think their defense can be really good, but their offense to me is going to be a little like inconsistent. It's going to be maybe right below league average. I like Jovic. Maybe Jaime Jaquez can have a bounce back this season, but it's going to be hard to see them as a playoff lock if their offense is going to be as inconsistent. Even with Bam, like I think Bam at this point, like I think I would say step back a little bit on his offensive upside. I still think he's one of the better defensive players in the league. And now that he does not have to play the full-time 5, that's going to help. But I'm not as high on Miami being a top 6 seed, but I definitely think they're going to be in the play-in.
Yeah, Miami's a tough team. I'm just not high on this offense at all. Defensively, I think they have the pieces. I think Davion Mitchell at a point of attack is one of the best in the NBA. I think Bam speaks for himself. Andrew Wiggins is still capable of being a really good wing defender. Jovic is capable. Like I like that, and Khalil Ware as a shot blocker and potential rim protector if he's fully engaged and understanding where he's meant to be at the right time. Blah blah blah. Defensively, cool. I see the vision. Offensively, I quite frankly just don't see much. I don't want to say much hope because that sounds like I'm saying they're going to be like the worst offense in the NBA, but I just don't see the upside for a league average offense. I think Tyler Hero is quite obviously their best offensive player, but he's someone who struggles with getting to the rim consistently. Their second best offensive player is probably Bam, but a lot of his rim looks were manufactured by both Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson. One of them is not on the team anymore, and the other one is missing the first month or so of the season. So I'm very concerned about how Bam's offense is going to look because his efficiency has been going down year after year, and that's pretty much because his rim volume is just decreasing year after year. He did start adding the three-point shot to his repertoire this past season, so we'll see how much of a threat that really is, and if that's something that he's really added to his game. I think last year he shot about 3 threes a game at 36%. So if he's able to scale that volume up, maybe then you get more efficient scoring from Bam. But this is someone who his shot diet is becoming less and less optimized by the year. And now he's going to be playing more 4, which would mean he's probably going to have to shoot the ball even more. That's concerning. Norman Powell, I do think, is a really gifted off-ball scorer, whether that's with his shooting ability to attack closeouts and get to the floater. Really good off-ball scorer, but a quite frankly bad defender who also doesn't pass the ball particularly well. There's concerns there. Like this team just lacks a lot of playmaking. It's Tyler Hero, Bam, and then like Terry Rozier is their next best playmaker.
Yeah,
like it's just like it's tough. Like I don't really see the avenue for this team.
Speaking of that,
being a league average offense. Last year they were 21st in offense, and I think they're going to be worse this year. That was last year when they had Jimmy for a handful of games. Tyler Hero was relatively healthy. Like now we're looking at no Duncan Robinson, no Tyler Hero for a month, no Jimmy Butler at all. This is a team that I think is penciled in to be a pretty below average offense, I'll say. Defensively, I can see the avenue for a top 10 defense, and I think that might be enough to get them in the play-in. And then once again, it's Miami in the play-in. You know, anything can happen. But this is another team where I think their ceiling is just losing in the first round and getting destroyed. Kind of like they did this past year by the Cavs. They just got they were in the playoffs in the first round, but they shouldn't have been there. Like the Cavs just steamrolled them. I think that's
I watched
probably
one game of that series. Like I watched one after the game one. I wasn't.
Yeah, I might have only watched one game as well. There was a game where Ty Jerome went crazy. I remember seeing that. But,
yeah.
This is a team. I just think their ceiling is first round. But go ahead.
I forgot to bring up Kasparas Yakuchonis, who I was talking about throughout the entire draft process, who kind of fell towards the end, but I still do think he has solid feel as an offensive player. With the shooting upside, I'm not going to say he's like a great shooter yet. I do think he has shooting upside and off-ball upside and ball handling and playmaking upside. Now, if I was Miami, I'd give him the run. and just try and progress him to be that playmaker
Quite
and
turnover
scorer.
prone, but yeah.
Exactly. Like, but I would give him the run. I don't think Miami's competing for a championship here. Like, I would just be trying to develop him to be maybe, I wouldn't say the main ball handler, but somebody you can go to who can create. He shows upside in that department. Now, there are times where he can dribble himself into trouble or over dribble in situations or dribble in traffic. And the ability to absorb contact isn't the best with him either. But I'm not going to lie. Like, if I have young talent, especially young guard talent, like they have to have those turnovers. They have to
They have to play
they
through
have
the
to be putting
mistakes.
that
Yep.
exactly. You can't show them, be like, look, you see why he didn't know. They have to make those turnovers themselves, or it's gonna like push the process back, in my opinion. But I would say, I'm not saying let him start or anything, but put him out there. Like against OKC, I play him. Like, look, go deal with Lou Dort. Go deal with Lou Dort. But
Yeah, that's just generally my biggest issue with this Heat team is just they lack athleticism. Like, I don't know who on this roster I can look at and be like, you're gonna generate me paint touches or rim touches consistently. I don't know who on the roster can do that, and that's my biggest concern and why I think they'll be a below average offense that will probably at best lose in the first round. The next team is probably the second most polarizing team in the conference, because they have probably the best player in the conference. The Milwaukee Bucks. Talk to me about the Milwaukee Bucks without saying, what if they trade Giannis?
Yeah, because, we go through that cycle every season. But I think the Milwaukee Bucks will be a good offense. I think they're going to be a bad defense. I don't think they're going to be like bottom of the league. I think more in the playoffs, their defensive issues will show more in the regular season. But again, I think this is where, to be completely honest, this is where you run point Giannis and everything runs through him. Everything in this offense runs through Giannis. I'm talking about pick and roll at the half court line. Pick and roll at the half court line and everybody standing on the perimeter. AJ Green, Gary Trent, Taurean Prince, Giannis, Miles Turner. Everybody outside of Giannis can hit a wide open three. Giannis is going to be rim running. Everybody move out the way so Giannis can get the rebound and run in transition. Kyle Kuzma won't play. Kevin Porter Jr. will be in the rotation at times. I think that's what this offense should be. Even towards the end of the season, when Damian Lillard was out, they were one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the league, and it was more of the looks that they were manufacturing because Giannis was able to attack mismatches, pass out of the post, make the skip passes at the top of the key, play in the pick and roll, get to the rim. If the Bucks could be a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference, which I don't think they will, but if they could, I think Giannis could like have I won't say unanimous, but a very clearly MVP caliber season. Like, I think this could be a 33, 11, and 8 type of season for Giannis, because I think that is the best output of offense for the Milwaukee Bucks. And I think that's what's going to get them in the playoffs. Just playing through Giannis and having a bunch of multiple 3-point shooters around him. I think that's the best scenario, but you have a lot of hurdles to get through. Kyle Kuzma and Doc Rivers, I don't know if they're going to be running those spacing lineups as much. Hopefully they do. I think that should be the starting lineup. Just Giannis and a bunch of spacers. I think they added Cole Anthony, who can be an extra ball handler, and Kevin Porter Jr., who shows some life as a defender, but I don't think this team is going to be as good defensively. I think Miles Turner was a really good pickup. I don't think he's a better rim protector than Brook Lopez, but it was very evident that Brook Lopez could not play in the postseason. And Bobby Portis also, I forgot all about Bobby Portis. Hopefully he can still be that spark off the bench that you would want him to be. But I think in a perfect world, the Bucks can win a series or two because they have the best player in the Eastern Conference. But I'm still on the Giannis 2018 Bron stuff. But realistically, I don't see them winning a playoff series. Realistically, unless they just go up against a really bad offensive team who's also really bad on defense. So, but
you think they're a top 6 team?
Do I think they're a top 6 team? I think so, but it's like right at the bottom It's like right at the bottom to where they're like the Pistons in my opinion, to where those are the teams I'm flopping in between. Like Giannis can carry this team to a top 6 seed, but I can also see a world because if Giannis misses 2-3 weeks in the season, they're playing. Like they might fall like badly. So that's the question I have with them. Like if Giannis plays 70 games, the Bucks can make a top 6 seed. If he misses 2-3 weeks, they could go 1-8. Like they can legitimately go 1-8, and it could be really bad. So maybe I would say top 6. I would say top 6.
Yeah, the Bucks are a team where I've thought about the Bucks quite a lot, and I'm pretty much stamped where I think they can be. I think at best they make the playoffs and lose in round 1. I don't see the avenue for them winning a series. I just don't see it. But I think they can be a really good regular season team to the point where I think they can have home court advantage and then just lose in round 1 anyway. And that's because I'm with you. I've been preaching this for pretty much the whole offseason. If they go all in on Giannis ball, which is 4 shooters around, this is a team that led the league in 3-point percentage last year, but like 18th in 3-point attempts. Ramp up the volume. Yeah. Ramp up the 100%. We are running pure. Everyone not named Giannis, all you have to do is be ready to shoot. That's it. We know you can't put the ball on the floor. Gary Trent, we know you can't create for yourself. That's fine. Just be ready to shoot. AJ Green, we know you aren't going to create much for yourself. That's fine. Just be ready to shoot. Taurean Prince, we know you can't create for yourself. That's fine. Just be ready to shoot. Miles Turner, just set that screen, set it high, get Giannis ahead of steam, and pop to that 3-point line. That's it. That's all we need. The issue I have is I don't think that's what the Bucks are going to run. I think the Bucks are going to start KPJ, Gary Trent, Kyle
Say
Kuzma,
his name,
Giannis, and Miles Turner. I think that's going to be the Bucks starting lineup. And that hurts my soul because I don't think that's maximizing Giannis or this team's regular season chances. I think if you want to maximize this team's regular season chances, the way to build a top 5, I wholeheartedly believe this team could be a top 5 regular season offense strictly off Giannis ball. He is that dangerous in transition. He is that dangerous getting to the rim. He is that good at drawing fouls, and he is that good at creating open threes for people. If this team can shoot 39% from 3, and Giannis can be Giannis with high volume usage, that's one of the 5 best offenses in the NBA statistically. Now, in terms of versatility and in a playoff matchup where teams know what you're trying to do and they realize that no one else on the team can put the ball on the floor, yes, they're going to be cooked. That's why they're not winning a series. But in a regular season, I could genuinely see that being a top 5 offense. Now, defensively, I like Miles Turner as a shot blocker. Don't like him in terms of his feel as a rim protector and as an anchor. But if he can block shots, alter shots, and allow Giannis to be a roamer while being able to be mobile, unlike Brook Lopez, which was the biggest issue with him, although I think he's a better pure rim protector anchor, he just couldn't move. If Miles Turner can just move well enough to allow Giannis to be functional as a roamer, that's cool. That's all I need from him. Kevin Porter Jr. showed that he can defend. He's got long arms, he's physical, and he moves very well. Ryan Rollins, really good defensive guard, really good length, can defend to the point of attack, can navigate screens, can also shoot the ball as well. He needs to be in the rotation. AJ Green doesn't kill you on defense. Not the greatest, but perfectly fine as a team defender. Does pretty much what you expect. Taurean Prince, same thing. Doesn't kill you as a defender. The occasional lapses, which will hurt you. But overall, slight negative, neutral. Cool. Kyle Kuzma. The less said about him, the better. I'm not trying to slander Kyle Kuzma. Just in case we ever get the opportunity for me to talk to him, I don't want him to know that I've just been hating. So Kyle Kuzma, just lock in. But this is a Bucks team that I think I'm fairly certain on what I think is going to happen. Well, what I think can happen. What I think will happen. This team is probably 5 through 7 in the East. Probably not maximizing Giannis the way they should. Well, the way I think they should, which is the lineup I alluded to. And ultimately, they probably end up with like a top 9-10 offense, top 16 defense, maybe 16 through 20, top 20.
One of those.
And they end up with like 40, 44 to 46 wins and end up 5-7. I'm gonna put them in the top 6 for now, but best case scenario, I see them losing in the first round. I don't see this team winning a series. It's very hard for me to envision that, but we'll see. Since they do have, in most people's estimation, the best player in the conference, that is always a good starting point. The next team was apparently in trade talks for Giannis, but they have not happened. The New York Knicks. Talk to me.
The New York Knicks are very intriguing because it seems like they're going to be running Cat at the 4 this season next to Mitchell Robinson. I saw some footage, or I wouldn't say some footage, but a picture. I don't remember if it was on Instagram, Twitter, whatever, of their practice, and it looked like Mitchell Robinson was playing with the starting unit, and he's also been starting in the preseason, to where I can understand why you would want to start Mitchell Robinson next to Cat to try and negate some of those defensive concerns that they had in the postseason last year with Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. The only question is, does that take away from some of the stuff they did so well offensively, particularly Karl Anthony Towns, just clogging up the lane where he was so good as a driver last year? There was a multiple possessions in the preseason games against the 76ers where it looked like Mitchell Robinson was taking away some of the driving lanes for guys like OG Anunoby and Karl Anthony Towns, but he can also be a lob threat and a rebounder and a rim protector, which are some things that the New York Knicks need, especially the rim protection in the defensive side of the floor. I think that can make them one of the better rebounding teams in the league. I just recently it felt more like Mike Brown wanted to play more with Cat as like a hub, especially since that's what he did in Sacramento with Domantas Sabonis. But it's kind of interesting to see their new regime. I do think that does take away from Karl Anthony Towns' offense playing at the power forward position, but I can understand why he's doing it. And then I like Deuce McBride off the bench to where they can stagger different type of lineups to try and create the best defensive unit possible for this team, with Jalen Brunson being surrounded by solid to above average defenders, or Karl Anthony Towns being surrounded with solid to above average defenders. I like the fact that they got better with their depth, bringing in guys like Malcolm Brogdon, Jordan Clarkson, Gershon Yabusele. But the thing that's stopping me from putting the Knicks as a contender is just the defense from JB and Karl Anthony Towns. I think in a postseason, and the health of Mitchell Robinson scares me a little bit if this is the starting lineup you're going to go with. But I think their defense is way too damning for them to win a championship. And I don't want to be a hater because, again, like, the Knicks are great. First conference finals appearance in 25 years. I can't see a world where they win a championship unless it's like injury luck or they get the proper matchup. But I think there are way too many talented teams that are going to kill them in transition, especially with Cat and Mitchell Robinson being your starting front court, and are going to kill them in pick and roll. If you like, in the Eastern Conference Finals, the Pacers were like forcefully getting Brunson and Cat in the same action. Like, it was happening time and time again. I don't trust that defense. I don't trust that defense with two guys that have to play heavy minutes. I don't trust the defense for me to think they're a full-blown contender. And maybe I think the next team we talk about is my actual second contender in the East, but it is what it is. It is. You know me. You know me.
I figured, yeah. Before I get into my spiel about the Knicks, Hunter 3200 said, I think the biggest key factor for the Knicks is what Yabusele looks like, and can Mitchell Robinson stay healthy? If those things turn out positive, the Knicks are legit. Also, those trade talks were not serious. Yeah, that was kind of just a little joke. But I'm gonna be more on the side of optimism. I would paint the Knicks as contenders. I do have the same hesitation with Brunson and Cat defensively. I think we saw it in the postseason last year. When your two best players are also your two worst defenders, you run into the problem of they have to play a lot, but we have to try and hide them with the other three. But I genuinely believe Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Mitchell Robinson are good enough to protect those two to the level required to get through the Eastern Conference. And the reason I think that is I think Mitchell Robinson is one of the best pure interior bigs in the NBA. And it obviously predicating health. Like, obviously, we're assuming health. But if he's healthy, really good in drop coverage, really good defending in action, really good rebounder, really good rim protector. Especially when he's fully healthy, really good rim protector. I do think the last couple of years, the rim protection has started. I think not this past season, the season before, the rim protection slipped. But I think that was because of injury. I think he looked a lot better this year as a rim protector, especially in the postseason. I think Karl Anthony Towns defending at the 4 where he's not in action as much is the best thing for him. Jalen Brunson, yes, you're going to hide him. He can't defend in action at all. He's going to take charges. Yay, little small victories. So you know the effort is at least there. He's willing to sacrifice his body. But at the end of the day, he's physically limited in terms of size and in terms of length and in terms of lateral mobility. He's just very limited. Mikal Bridges, I do think is capable. And one thing I noticed, I was very harsh on Mikal Bridges this past year.
Yes, you were.
Very, very harsh. Hands are up. I'm not going to deny it. But one thing that I will acknowledge, Mikal Bridges as a screen navigator when Mitchell Robinson is the big versus when Karl Anthony Towns is the big, look vastly different. His ability to recover back in front of the ball when he has a drop big who's actually capable of playing drop coverage to a competent level is vastly different than when he's trying to get back and recover to the ball when he's defending with Karl Anthony Towns, who can't keep the big in front of him or the ball in front of him. So I do want to say part of me being harsh on Mikal probably was me taking out Cat's flaws on him. So my bad, Mikal. I'll acknowledge that. OG Anunoby, I think, is one of the best wing defenders in the league, especially with everything he can do away from the ball. I think he was doing his best job at trying to cover up for Cat's weaknesses last year. He was practically doing everything, whether that be rim protection, rotations, passing lanes, digging at the nail, guarding on the ball. He was doing everything.
Everything.
He guarded Cade at such a high level in the playoffs.
Yes, he did.
Such a high level in the playoffs. Like Mikal was struggling with the physicality, but OG, oh my God, did a hell of a job. Deuce McBride, another guy who I think is a really good defender. He's probably their best pure point of attack defender, like the Davion Mitchell role. He's their best at that. If he can knock down threes at a high clip, I do see a lot of run for him. Yabusele is like, as someone who watched probably too many Philly games last year, he's just not good enough defensively, in my opinion, to justify minutes in a playoff setting. Too slow to play any position other than the 5. And the spacing value at the 5 is cool, but he can't defend at the 5 for obvious reasons. The guy's like 6'7".
Yeah, he's like 6'6",
like,
6'7".
Like, it's nice. So it's like it's tough.
I didn't want to say it.
Jordan Clarkson, I think, is kind of underrated. I do understand the issues that come with the shot selection, but I do think he's a very capable passer. And having someone who can get to a bucket late clock when you have nothing really going on, I do think is valuable. He can shoot the ball at a relatively decent level, though the percentages probably aren't on his side. I do think part of that is shot selection issues, which I am concerned about. Obviously, once you get to a contending team, you do have to take those shots out of your repertoire. We don't need the crazy Jordan Clarkson heat checks when you're 2 for 6 shooting a heat check. We don't need that. But definitely another offensive punch, which I do think can provide some value. Josh Hart is someone who can push pace, especially off rebounds, grab and go, one-man fast break. Definitely think his minutes need to decrease. Very happy that Mike Brown has been bringing him off the bench in preseason. I think that's his best role. Not the highest on Josh Hart overall. I think defensively he leaves quite a bit to be desired, especially for a role player. They got Malcolm Brogdon, right? Or I'm tripping?
Yeah, Malcolm Brogdon.
Obviously a lot of health questions with Malcolm Brogdon, but definitely someone who can knock down threes, can initiate offense, isn't the greatest passer, but also just isn't a very error-prone player. He's gonna make fine decisions consistently, and that's kind of all you need. So I think this is gonna be a Knicks team that can do really good, especially if Cat is good as in his role as a hub, because he's gonna definitely take on that role, like you said. This team should be really good at limiting turnovers. Brunson's really good at limiting turnovers. Brogdon is really good at limiting turnovers. If Karl Anthony Towns isn't playing outside of himself, This team should be really good at winning the possession battle with the offensive rebounding of Mitchell Robinson, with the low turnovers. And then you have one of the best closers in the league with Jalen Brunson, someone who can score at will. I do think this is a team that has a ceiling of a top 5 offense. And if they can just get to a 12th ranked defense, slightly above average defense, I think that's enough to make them contenders in the East, where they can go punch for punch with pretty much anyone. So I would paint them as contenders. You would paint them as a top 16, right?
Yeah.
I'll put them in the top 6, and you can make the case for why the next team, which is the Orlando Magic. Make the case for not only why the Orlando Magic are contenders. No, just make the case why they're contenders. We don't need to compare them to Knicks. Talk to me about the Orlando Magic.
So I do think the Knicks will be a better regular season team than the Orlando Magic. And they may even be a better postseason team. But I will openly say it. This is a lot of Paolo bias.
Yeah, I need to hear this because I'm lower on Paolo than you are by a good bit. So I want to hear this.
by a very good bit. I think Paolo and Franz can improve to be that 1-2 punch to make it to the NBA Finals. I think their defense is going to be top 5 in the NBA, and I think they're one of the deepest rosters in the East. Bringing in guys like, I think Tristan da Silva can be a really good rotational player this season with the way he can make shots and play defense and put the ball on the floor at times. I wouldn't ask him to be that big of a ball handler, but with Jalen Suggs, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and Desmond Bane, that's multiple ball handlers to where you're always going to have a drive and kick potential. I saw some DHOs with Desmond Bane to where he can make the skip passes to the corner or find the cutter within those DHOs with Wendell Carter Jr. I like Anthony Black off the bench, another really good ball handler and solid defender. I do think this relies on the 3-point shooting. This is a team that is going to have to shoot. I think if they can shoot slightly above league average, they can go to the NBA Finals. Now, that is a very big ask, but if they can muster up 3-point shooting, let's say Paolo has another run where he's shooting from 3.
Run. Meanwhile, he's played 12 playoff games, by the way. But okay.
Hey, man. Hey, I'm high on this Orlando team. I think Franz is one of the best drivers and finishers at his position. And it's so funny how people talk about Paolo's shot selection. Meanwhile, Franz is shooting like 20% from 3 and takes 8 a game. Like, nobody talks about that, but it is what it is.
Franz hate? Okay, cool.
No, it's not Franz hate. I like Franz, but again, this is strictly for Paolo. But I think Paolo, what he's shown towards the end of last year and at the start of last year, is more who he was than he was in between the season. I think Paolo, with the ability to pass and create and get downhill to the level that he does, I think he can be like an all-NBA caliber player this season. Like, I do think some of the shot diet is going to be taken out of his game this year, especially now that you have multiple ball handlers on the perimeter in a Desmond Bane and Franz Wagner. I've always been saying I want Paolo to play closer to the basket. I don't want him to have to create on the perimeter all the time, maybe right around the elbow to where he can already have an earlier start, in my opinion, to get to the rim and collapse the defense. I think Desmond Bane opens up this offense much more. You can run two-man actions with Paolo and Desmond Bane, which I think could be very accurate or very good for them. Desmond Bane can be the ball handler in a pick and roll, or Paolo can be the ball handler in the pick and roll, and they can run pick and pops with those two. One of my biggest questions outside of the offense and the 3-point shooting would be the center rotation. I'm not as high on Wendell Carter Jr., like, not at all. They were absolutely ignoring him as a 3-point shooter, and I just don't think he's that good of a defender. Jonathan Isaac is someone who's going to be like very questionable with his health as well. If he can play, he's one of the top tier defenders. I think he's taken a little bit of a step back this past season, but I still do think he's to the caliber of a top tier defender in the NBA. We all know about Jalen Suggs. I think Jalen Suggs is one of the best point of attack defenders in the league. And to be completely honest, my argument is on if they can shoot at league average or slightly above, I think they can go to the finals. I truly think this team can go to the finals.
I'm gonna be the party pooper, I guess. I'm not. I see why people say that. Now, here's my hesitation. I want to start by saying I still think Jonathan Isaac is one of the best defenders in the league. I still do. I just think he put on weight to try and play more 5 because that's what it made him do in the playoffs against the Cavs. And he just wasn't physically up to it. So he got bulkier. So he's not able to move on the perimeter like he used to. But still one of the most game-wrecking defensive playmakers in the league. Amazing defender. I have quite literally 0 question marks about the Orlando Magic's defense. Not one. I think this is a shoe-in top 3 defense in the league. OKC, Houston, Orlando. I think that's the top 3 defenses in the NBA. I don't hesitate to say that. Jalen Suggs, one of the best point of attack defenders in the NBA. Jonathan Isaac, amazing defender. Paolo, competent within team scheme. Cool. Franz Wagner, really good defender. Desmond Bane, solid defender. Cool. Then you add the depth that they have defensively. I think Wendell is a cool defender. I just think overall, I have Anthony Black, no questions about their defense. I also really like Jace Richardson. Had concerns about his size.
I forgot about
that. But man, he can just play basketball. And I love people who can just play basketball. He knows how to play the game. Now, is he going to be ready to come in right away as a rookie and play serious minutes? Maybe not because of the physical development, physical maturation that might need to happen. But I really like Jace Richardson's game. Okay. Now, here's my, I guess, pessimism. I still don't like the shooting on this roster, like, at all. I understand Desmond Bane is a major upgrade from KCP, major upgrade. Desmond Bane's one of the best shooters in the league. KCP had a horrific shooting season this past season. But this is an Orlando team that I think shot 31% from 3 as a team over 82 games.
Yeah.
I don't think Desmond Bane is saving that. I just don't. I don't think Desmond Bane is saving it. And asking them to go from 31% to above the average, that's a big jump. That's a major jump. That would project Franz going from 25% or whatever he just shot to approaching league average. That would be asking Paolo to become a really competent shooter. Although I think Paolo can shoot, I think his shot selection is probably a bigger issue than his shooting, but I still do think mechanically there are a few issues I have with Paolo's shot, especially when it comes to a balance perspective. But I'm not a shooting coach, so I'm not going to speak to that. Wendell being parked out in the corner as a horrible shooter, that's just bad spacing. But a big reason why they do that is because they have to try to open up the lane for guys like Paolo and Franz who thrive downhill. And Paolo's still not the best, in my opinion, at getting his way all the way to the rim. That's my biggest issue with Paolo. Whereas Franz can get to the rim. He can finish with consistency. He's one of the best rim finishing forwards in the NBA. Paolo, I would say, is a bit more limited in that regard, but he has the physical tools to where you see the flashes and it's like, wow. And he can get to the line at will. He can lower his shoulder into you. Really good feel for kick out passes. But my concerns, and a lot of them, and this is why no one's actually really called me a Paolo hater, but I know people have thought it. I feel it's easy to say that Paolo's issues will be sorted out if Orlando had better spacing. And I do think better spacing can hide anyone's issues offensively. Some of them, at least. I do think you put any offensive player into a situation with bad spacing and a situation with amazing spacing, although they're their exact same player, they will look better with better spacing. I think that applies to every player. However, I do think some of Paolo's issues aren't symptomatic of bad spacing. I think they're just symptomatic of his flaws as a player that I need to see if they get resolved. My first issue with Paolo, I'm not going to go on a whole tirade, by the way, but my first issue with Paolo is he's kind of a tweener in the way in which he has to attack offensively. And what I mean by that is because of his size, teams typically guard him with their bigger wings, whether that be an OG Anunoby or you go through the league, the bigger wings in the NBA. They'll typically guard him with them. And although he has a really big strength advantage over most of the league, he typically struggles to overpower those matchups. And he's also not quick enough to just burst by bigs, which would mean he's going to mismatch hunt guards, which is fine. But when you're on a team already devoid of spacing, the direct result of Paolo having to mismatch hunt guards is that the big is able to roam freely away from the ball because you don't put him in the action because Paolo is not comfortable beating bigs in isolation. Which means, like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, he's directly contributing to the lack of spacing he's having to deal with because he can't remove the big from the lane himself. So because he, like, for example, if the Magic are playing let's say, let me think of a team. Let's say the Magic are playing. I don't want to say the Thunder. That's free eats.
The Heat playing the Heat right now.
Sure. Let's say the Magic are playing the Heat. Although Bam's one of the most switchable bigs in the NBA, so that might also be a bad example.
Clippers.
Sure, Clippers.
Just throwing out
that's fine. Yeah, the Clippers. That's fine. Okay, so what Paolo will often do is, and this is where Desmond Bane I do think helps, because you have guard-to-guard screens with Desmond Bane, elite shooter, that helps. He can pop, slip, all of this stuff. Go screens, yeah, ooh, fancy terminology. But the issue still arises that most players of Paolo's stature, if they're playing against a team like the Clippers, let's say Kawhi or Derrick Jones Jr. are guarding Paolo, he might be able to overpower a guy like Derrick Jones Jr. So then he'll post him up, and then that's where you see the spacing issues. Guys will collapse, blah, blah, blah. He has to make kickouts to bad shooters, spacing cooked. But let's say he's trying to now go at a guy like Kawhi, for example. If he's trying to go at a guy like Kawhi who he can't overpower physically, what most people will do is they'll call for a screen with the big, and then now you have the quickness advantage if they switch, blah, 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 or you can attack a slow-footed big and drop, blah, 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 get to the rim. Paolo doesn't have the explosiveness, and this is why I hate the LeBron comparisons, by the way. Paolo doesn't have the explosive. Yeah, I ignore them every time I see it. Paolo doesn't. Same thing with Carmelo Anthony. If he had Carmelo's physical tools, we're talking about a different level of player. But if he could consistently attack bigs in space and get by them, what happens when you beat a big off the bounce? The guys rotating to the rim are smaller, just typically. Now, if he beats Zoo off the bounce, he now has James Harden meeting him at the rim. We all know if Paolo's going downhill with James Harden rotating, that's very different than if Paolo has to beat James Harden off the dribble because he has to mismatch on guards with Zoo rotating. And that's the point I'm trying to illustrate when it comes to Paolo. Because of his physical limitations and inability to consistently beat bigs off the bounce, he's having to mismatch hunt guards, which lead to the bigs being camped in the lane. So he's kind of killing his own spacing with his physical limitations. And then also the lack of shooting allows the big to feel comfortable leaving when no cards are open, which is, once again, the problem with the spacing of Orlando. So that's like my biggest issue with just Paolo in general. And then it comes down to like some of like the areas of the court in which he feels most comfortable operating. And then also I just feel like he's very comfortable just shooting mid-range jumping. I feel like he just likes shooting them, which is just an issue of shot selection.
I don't like that shit.
Yeah, but he's just comfortable shooting them, and when it goes in, it looks amazing. When it doesn't go in, it looks bad. So it's like this past postseason, I think he shot higher percentage on threes than he did on twos. Like, I just don't think that's sustainable offense. I know he played well against Boston, and this is where it comes from. There's two different things. You can acknowledge a player playing well, but then you can also not say that makes them a better player, if that makes sense. If a player goes on a hot shooting streak in a series, PJ Washington, for example, against OKC, we can acknowledge PJ Washington played well, amazingly well against OKC in the 24 playoffs. But that doesn't mean I have to change my evaluation of PJ Washington as a player because he got uncharacteristically hot from an area of the floor in which he doesn't normally get hot from. That's how I feel about Paolo. Yeah. That's how I feel about Paolo somewhat in the playoffs, where we now have a 12-game sample of him being a 40% three-point shooter in the playoffs. But my biggest concern is that the two-point percentage is egregious. Like, we're looking at back-to-back postseasons where I want to get the numbers just so I'm not selling people a dream. Paolo Banchero, in his two postseason runs, is shooting combined 45.6% on two-pointers. That's just not good. Now, I can acknowledge the three-point shot is amazing. The fact that he's shooting 41.8% on threes, great. But if we're talking about a fully maximized Paolo, the Paolo that we believe he can be, and the way in which Paolo is most effective is not having random hot streaks from three. It's from being this physically imposing, dominant interior presence who gets to the line at will, can get to the rim consistently, and is very capable scoring inside the line. Not this, I'm going to shoot 6-7 threes a game, nice, at 44%. That's not how we want to actualize Paolo. So that's my concerns with him. And then the concerns with Franz, he quite frankly just has no game outside of like 15 feet. He's got a really good floater, which I like. Amazing rim finisher, great counters, deceleration. He, for the last 2 years, hasn't been able to shoot a jump shot, whether that be in the mid-range or from three. And to your point, he shot more threes per game in the playoffs last year than Paolo did. I shot 19%. If your two best players are question marks as outside shooters, that handicaps your roster construction, especially when they're wings. If one of them is a big, cool. then the other one is still concerning. But you have two wings who take up a lot of usage who are questionable shooters. Jalen Suggs, is he a good shooter? He had that year in 24, really good. Last year, didn't look so good.
Was not good.
How good of a shooter is Jalen Suggs? Because when he took that Birds away, they were making him run pick and rolls and shoot pick and rolls out of drop coverage. He didn't look good. So it's like, I have too many question marks on the shooting on this entire roster outside of Desmond Bane. Like, the only guys on this roster who and Jace Richardson, I actually think can make threes. But everyone else on this roster, I have question marks about how good of a shooter they are. I can't just project league average shooting. I can't project that. But I do think they're a top 6 team solely off the back of the fact that I think defensively they're going to be amazing. And I hope, for the love of God, Jamal Mosley realizes if we get this many stops, we should probably play in transition more.
Thank you.
Up the pace, please. Up the pace. Like, I have my issues about them in the half court. I have a lot of issues with them in the half court. But if you're getting this many stops, please run. Just run. Like, they were 29th in pace, I think. I want to check. 29th in pace. That's criminal for a team that can't shoot the ball, but plays defense as well as they do. You should not be 29th in pace. Every missed shot, you should be running. Franz Wagner, amazing in transition. Paolo, a wrecking ball in transition. Jalen Suggs is fast as hell. Anthony Black is fast as hell. Like, run the floor. Desmond Bane is an amazing transition player, by the way.
Amazing.
So hopefully they
maximize
that as well. So it's like, if they just play faster and still have this amazing defense, that alone, I think, should climb them from 27th in offense to like 19th. And that, for me, would probably be enough to get them in the top 6 seeds in the East. Now, I don't see them making the finals unless there is the jump from Paolo or the jump from Franz or both. If now they become better shooters or Paolo's a better decision maker, whatever the case, then I'm like, okay, I can see the vision. But as I currently see them, I also think Paolo's 0 for 8 on jump shots in preseason. Do that information what you will.
We ain't gonna talk about that.
But if I see that, then I will say then my evaluation of them will change. But as I saw them last year, and as I see these players and what I think they are right now, not projecting major growth, this team to me is a top 6 seed that at best probably loses in round 2 because of offensive limitations. That's why I see them. But you have them as contenders. So I don't know what to do because I have the Knicks as contenders, you have the Magic as contenders, and then vice versa, we both have the other team top 6. So do you want to both just put them both in contenders, or do you want to put them both in
we can do that. We can do that. Okay. We could put them both in contenders. Because both of my evaluations on the Knicks and Magic are on big, like, I would say I'm saying the Knicks aren't contenders because of their defensive liabilities within Brunson and Cat, which can be something that can be hidden, versus Orlando upping their 3-point percentage to league average and they can go to the finals. So I'm just going to put them in. Exactly.
Yes, major optimism. For reference, league average from 3 last year was 36%. Orlando was 31.8. So you're asking for quite a big jump.
Hey, Paolo gonna get it done. He gonna get it done.
I mean, if he does, then
he won't be able to shut me up.
Next team is the team that I think is the most polarizing team on the entire list. I think everyone can guess who it is. We are, of course, talking about the Philadelphia 76ers. Talk to me.
I think the Philadelphia 76ers are a top 6 level team. Now, I'm not projecting that Joel Embiid will be MVP level Joel Embiid that he was in the 23-24 season, the type of level where he would have won MVP again. But I do think he can be healthy enough to where this team could be a top 6 team. I don't think Paul George is as bad as everyone thinks he is. It's the contract that what people look like. It's kind of like what happened with Bradley Beal. You know, Bradley Beal was god awful in Phoenix, and now once the contract is off his name and he goes to Clippers, it's a great pickup. You know, like, I think Paul George can be a really good player for this team. I don't think he can get to the rim to the level that he's used to, but he still isn't the point of attack defender, but he's like the passing lane defender, somebody that can be really smart within that range. I think Tyrese Maxey has gotten better as a creator without Joel Embiid in the time that he has played this season. But having Joel Embiid obviously is going to help. I like the fact that they brought back Quentin Grimes. And again, one of my favorite players in the league, Jared McCain. He was absolutely phenomenal offensively as a rookie last season. I think his on-ball ability is going to take him very far in the NBA. The ability to shoot to the level he does in transition, out of pick and roll, as a spot-up shooter off motion. I think this is going to be, if fully healthy, I think this is one of the more talented offenses in the entire NBA. And I think if Joel Embiid is healthy, he can anchor this defense to a level that they can be respectable. I'm not going to say they're going to be an elite defense, but I do think they can be respectable. VJ Edgecombe is also somebody that I really like for them, somebody that can play in transition next to Tyrese Maxey. He's probably going to start. I don't think they'll start Jared McCain over Tyrese Maxey and have two non-defending small guards. I think VJ Edgecombe has the athleticism and strength to be able to guard at the point of attack. Now, I don't know if you would want to trust a rookie as a point of attack defender in the postseason, but that's one of my bigger concerns with the Sixers, and also the playmaking and passing from the guards. Like, I think Tyrese Maxey is solid, but I don't think he's like to the level where he can really operate an offense as a playmaker. Same with Jared McCain, same with VJ Edgecombe. I think they're going to be doing a lot of passing out of committee, but I do think they're talented enough to be a top 6 seed. And it really all just depends on Joel Embiid. Like, if he's hurt or he shows that he looks exactly how he did last season, I don't think the Sixers are nearly as good. So
Jamal said, I've been seeing the Embiid videos, Mars. We back. I'm gonna talk about everyone else but Joel Embiid, and then I'm gonna circle back. Tyrese Maxey, I think, showed a lot last season as an offensive player, and quite frankly, a bad offensive situation. Definitely over leveraged with creation and trying to create for himself and others. But I still think he did as good of a job as you could hope for from Tyrese Maxey. I think Paul George was a legitimately good defender last year, although definitely overtasked offensively with creation for himself. I think at this point, Paul George is an overqualified role player offensively. And what I mean by that is one of the best shooters in the league, whether that be off movement or off the catch, someone who can attack a closeout and get to a mid-range, someone who late clock situations can create for himself in the mid-range, really talented shooter. But if you have him initiating offense out of pick and rolls, or you've got him isolating consistently, you're not maximizing Paul George at this point in his career. Just to your point, I just don't think he has the burst or the ability to create separation or get to the rim at the level you need to have consistent, efficient offensive creation from Paul George. That should be remedied with health of the rest of the roster, which is the question mark. Jared McCain, whenever he comes back, has shown that he is a really good offensive player. He's smart, shoots the ball really well, plays off of 2 feet, plays under control, plays with balance. Defensively, not much to write home about. Doesn't move his feet particularly well. Definitely gives effort, but definitely struggles with containing on the ball. Quentin Grimes, another really gifted offensive player, someone who can initiate, someone who can play off the ball, can knock down spot threes. I think this is a very offensively gifted team with not many holes. The only holes I would point to is maybe their size on the wing. I would say they got Paul George. They have Kelly Oubre, who I have my concerns about in terms of his IQ. And that's pretty much it in the wing department. Everyone else is either a guard or a big. So their wing depth is my biggest concern for them offensively. But they have so much talent offensively that can fit next to each other that I do still think they have the makings, when healthy, to be a top 10 offense in the NBA. Defensively is going to be a lot of anchoring from Joel Embiid, who I do think can be one of the most impactful drop bigs in the NBA, one of the most impactful rim protectors. Adem Boner, I do think, is someone who plays with high energy, high motor, really good athlete who can alter shots at the rim, but still can be a bit foul prone, can be a bit error prone, can be a bit overzealous chasing blocks. Paul George, I already pointed to. I do think he is a good defender. I still think Kyle Lowry at this age is a very smart team defender who can make plays, put his body on the line, all that good stuff. Quentin Grimes, I think, is a capable defender, but probably was so over leveraged offensively last year, and the team sucks that he wasn't even really putting forth much effort defensively, but I do think he's capable. VJ is kind of a question mark. Obviously, all the athletic tools to be a good defender, but it's very rare that rookies are impactful defenders, especially non-bigs. So I don't know what to expect from him. But if he can come in and be passable on defense, that's huge for them. Now, everything I just said means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. If Joel Embiid is not healthy and playing at the level that we all know to expect from Joel Embiid, I'm not saying he plays and looks like he did in the 24-25 season. That also would mean nothing for the Sixers. But if Joel Embiid looks like the 23 version of Joel Embiid or the 24 level of Joel Embiid, this is a team that I think is the tier below, for me, the Cavs and the Knicks. But they would be the next best team, in my opinion. Now, because of the health question marks, I know Joel Embiid is scrimmaging 5-on-5. Some of the clips of that have circulated today. He looks good from what you can see in snippets. He looks like he's moving well. I saw him dunk the ball. Yay. And he didn't fall over after dunking the ball. Progress. He does look slimmer if we want to go full analysis. So if Joel Embiid is 5-on-5 scrimmaging, I know that's one of the last hurdles you start to cross before you get ready to play in actual games. They're probably just seeing to see how his body reacts to consistent scrimmages. So I wouldn't expect Joel Embiid to be there on opening night, but I do think we might be closer to Joel Embiid's return than people think. Maybe we're looking at early to mid-November. And if Joel Embiid is there available within the first month of the season, and then he's playing with relative consistency, obviously no back-to-backs, and we can get 46 to 52 games of Joel Embiid, I expect the Sixers to be in the playoffs. And I expect them to be in the playoffs as a top 6 team. That's my expectations. Now, what they do in the playoffs with that, once again, depends on the health of their roster. Is Paul George going to be healthy? Is Embiid going to be healthy? You have to even ask, is Jared McCain going to be healthy? If the answer is yes, I think they could make the conference finals. I do think their lack of defensive versatility would hurt them, and would mean I wouldn't pick them to be either the Cavs. Maybe I could see them over the Knicks, but I would favor the Knicks. So I would probably say their ceiling is the conference finals, and then their floor, if everything comes crashing down, Joel Embiid doesn't look like the Joel that they need, or Joel Embiid is not healthy enough to play plus 41 games, or Paul George is not healthy enough, I can see this team in the
first pick in the draft,
just outside of it. Yeah, it really fluctuates. So I will put the Sixers in the play-in. That is where I will put them. But I can see them being the third best team in the East if everything goes right. But I can't just project off of that personally. So I have them in the play-in. Where do you have the Sixers?
I want to go top 6 seed, but I'll go play-in.
So right now we have 3 teams in contenders, 3 teams in top 6, 4 teams in the play-in, 2 lottery teams, and 1 tanking team. The last team, we know where they're going to go. So that one will be quick and sweet. But this team is interesting. The Toronto Raptors. What do you see for the Toronto Raptors this season?
I think the Raptors can make a play-in. I've heard Penn say it a lot. Like over the last second half of the season, they're like a top 5 defense in the league. And I do think they're going to be able to carry that through this year. I think they're going to be one of the better defenses in the league. Do I think they're going to be a top 5 defense? I don't think so. But they do have a lot of really good defensive pieces, whether it's Scotty Barnes, Colin Murray-Boyle's the rookie that they just drafted. I'm really intrigued by him. I think he was one of the best defenders in the draft class. You could put him at the 4 or the 5. Jakob Poeltl is a solid defender. Jonathan Mogul is a really good defender as well. Adding Brandon Ingram to be that half-court scorer has been very important for them. I think Brandon Ingram is going to carry that load this season because I do think Scotty Barnes is a really good player. I think he's being overutilized, asking him to be a number 1 on a playoff contending type of team. And I just don't think that's his role. Like, I think he's a fantastic player for what he can do. Really good defender, very versatile defender, has gotten a lot better as a passer. But the outside shooting, the inconsistent outside shooting, and the inconsistency of being a league average in terms of efficiency is where I would say maybe you're overtasking him a little bit. This is somebody I think that can be a really good defender, solid, really good passer. I just don't see him being a number 1 scorer, and I think that's how he was being used over the past few seasons. I think Brandon Ingram takes a little bit away from that. RJ Barrett, he's a solid driver, but when it comes to spacing the floor, I don't necessarily think he's going to be as good in that department. Hopefully Emmanuel Quickly can be healthy this season because I do think he's their best floor general as far as just being a point guard. But Colin Murray Boyles is somebody that I'm very intrigued to see play. I think with his strength, rebounding, and the use of his hands within pick and roll on the ball, I think that could be very good next to Scotty Barnes. I really do think that's a defensive tandem that can work really well. But the offensive limitations of this team is something that is concerning, but I think their size and their length and their ability to defend will be able to bring them into a play-in conversation. So I'm going to be putting them in the play-in.
Toronto is a tough team for me. Yes, since January 1st, they were sixth in defense. That's probably, if I change the date a little bit, they'd probably be top 5. I don't care enough to check. But really good defense in 2025. That's the point. Scotty Barnes is probably the catalyst of that. I put him on my first team, all versatile defenders. All switchable defenders. I think he's one of the most switchable, versatile defenders in the NBA. Really like his passing. Really like his physical tools on that side of the ball, whether that be being in the lanes, being a playmaker, or just being someone who can guard multiple positions. Scale up with his strength, scale down with his quickness and length. Like, really, really good defender. Emmanuel Quickly is someone who a few years ago, we're looking at 2020, was it the 2023 season? I think so, maybe 2023. One of the best guard defenders in the NBA. I loved Emmanuel Quickly. The last couple years, injuries and just watching him, I haven't seen that same level of defensive impact. I need to see that come back, in my opinion. Offensively, I'm not the highest on him. He is someone who can shoot the ball at a high clip, does have a nice floater, but doesn't get to the rim with consistency, doesn't finish at the rim with any sort of consistency. So I do think there is a cap on the level of scoring value that you can get from Emmanuel Quickly. I don't think he's the greatest passer. I'd probably say he's the third best passer on their team, unless I'm forgetting someone on the edge of their rotation behind Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes. But that's neither here nor there. I do like Jakob Poeltl. I think he's cool. I think he's a serviceable big. I'm not the highest on RJ Barrett. He's someone who can get downhill consistently, which is good. Cannot finish with any sort of consistency. Just the touch and the ability to finish over the trees is just not great. The shot selection is not great. Doesn't have much of a floater game that is reliable, in my opinion. So I would be looking to move off RJ Barrett, especially since I don't think he's a good defender either. I do think he probably has some value around the league. I don't know though. But Brandon Ingram is the big acquisition, the big marquee player. I think Brandon Ingram is a really, 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 really good half-court offensive player. Now, the scoring efficiency is never going to jump off the page because he's a heavy mid-range guy and because he's not going to get to the rim or shoot the three with a lot of volume. But he's a capable catch-and-shoot three-point shooter. I think the numbers would say he's around 40% in the last few years on catch-and-shoot threes. He's an elite mid-range guy, someone who's extremely versatile, can handle the ball. And I've been saying it for a while now, and maybe, I don't know if people are going to watch the Raptors to realize this for themselves. He's one of the best passing wings in the NBA. Brandon Ingram is an amazing passer. I could make the argument Brandon Ingram is a better passer than he is a scorer. That's how good of a passer Brandon Ingram is. So I think if you put the ball in his hands and you have Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram pick and roll, a lot of good offense is going to come from that because Scotty Barnes is able to punish mismatches, really good turnaround jump shot. He's really comfortable in the mid-range. Brandon Ingram is really comfortable in the mid-range, really comfortable scoring over smaller defenders. This is a team that I think is going to hang its head on defense. I do think it has the capability to be a top 10-ish defense. And then offensively, I would probably paint them as a slightly below average one because I'm not as high on Scotty Barnes' individual creation. Like to your point, I'm not as high on it. But I do think this team can make the play-in. But I do think their ceiling is losing in the first round. I don't see this team winning a playoff series. I think they're too offensively limited. But I definitely think they could get in the play-in. We're looking at a team that probably hovers around 500. I would say anywhere from 38 to 44 wins. 44 wins would be probably where I see them maxing out at. So 38 to 44 in that range. And then the play-in, best case scenario, losing round 1. Worst case scenario, they lose in the play-in. Probably in the 8. They're probably in the 8-9 spot, I would say. Maybe the 9-10. I don't know. So yeah, I have them in the play-in just like you. And then the last team, we are going to talk about them, but we know where they are going. They are absolutely going in the tanking category. Talk to me about the Washington Wizards.
I do think the Washington Wizards are going to be tanking this season, but I do think they're closer than people may think, just because I do like some of their young talent and the ability, the players that they brought in this season. You obviously draft Trey Johnson, who I thought was the best scorer in this draft. Cam Whitmore is someone who's really intriguing with his athleticism and shooting. I like Alex Sarr as a center, but he's really shown a lot of signs as a defender, and I feel like he's a little bit more of a ways to go as an offensive player. But I do like the groundwork of what they're doing. Um, I think bringing in Chris Middleton as a vet is also really solid as well. But I feel like I know where they're going to be this year. I think they're going to be the worst team in the East. But I am very excited to see what improvements they can make to their young core. I think Keyshawn George is really good. Been watching him over the offseason. I think he's really good as a defender, as a potential three-point shooter, somebody that whether he's starting by the time they get good or he's somebody that's really valuable off the bench, I think he's somebody that can carve out a role for this team. Bilal Coulibaly is somebody with his athleticism and defense. I think he's really good there. I think they're laying down the groundwork of a really good defensive team. Now, I've been making the case for them to draft my boy over in Phoenix, and that would have put them really over the top, but it is what it is.
Trey Johnson is good.
Yeah, Trey Johnson is really good, so I'm cool with it. At least they didn't draft Jaeger, but Trey Johnson is really good with his off-ball play. He is a way better passer than people give him credit for. I think Trey Johnson is a really good passer, especially what he was showing out of in college. But I know where this Wizards team is going to be. They're going to be a solid watch. Some nights it's going to be a close game. You're going to turn them on, but after like the first month and a half of basketball, it's not a lot of people watching the Wizards. So,
yeah. We know they're not trying to win anything. They know they're not trying to win anything. This is a team that's probably going to win about 14 games. They're probably going to go 14-68. Is what it is. This is about developing young guys, building good habits. They have an NBA champion over there in Chris Middleton. They have CJ McCollum, one of the biggest professionals in the NBA. This is about just getting the young guys the right tutelage and building good habits to where they can become impactful players. So I'm not going to judge the Wizards on the scale of are they going to be a good team, because obviously no, they're obviously not going to be a good team. But do I like the vision, the direction they're going in terms of the young talent? I'm not as high, personally. I like the upside of Alex Sarr. I think having a 7-1 big who has shown the ability to be switchable and protect the rim and alter shots and be a capable guy who can grab and go off the glass. I do think that provides value. I think that's cool. Offensively, there's question marks. People labeled him as this big who can stretch the floor at 7-1. I'm yet to see the indicators of that, barring a couple games of hot shooting. But like the actual reality of the situation is he didn't shoot well overseas and he didn't shoot well as a rookie. And the biggest issue he has, oh, hello, it's just me. The biggest issue he has is, quite frankly, he's one of the worst rim finishing bigs in the NBA. And that was an issue he had overseas. That was an issue he had at OTE. That's an issue he had as a rookie. That's something that I think is tough to build with. Bilal Coulibaly is someone who has the physical tools to be intriguing, but we are going into year 3 and he's still pretty much a bad player on both sides of the ball. I would lean more to he's closer to neutral in defense, but overall I would still paint him as a negative. And offensively, he's bad. He's just a bad offensive player who doesn't really do much, doesn't shoot the ball at a high clip, doesn't finish at the rim at a high clip, doesn't get to the rim at a high clip, doesn't have a good handle, doesn't have much in terms of playmaking or passing. There's not much redeeming qualities offensively with Bilal Coulibaly. That's concerning for me. Bob Carrington is someone who's a really gifted mid-range scorer, but has no burst or explosiveness or ability to get to the rim with any sort of consistency, and hasn't shown the willingness to shoot threes at volume or make threes at volume. So I have issues with him. What's the ceiling on him as a scorer or as an overall offensive player? Quite low, in my opinion. Cam Whitmore, really gifted scorer. We have to see the growth defensively and as a passer, but I'm very intrigued to see what they do with him. AJ Johnson is kind of the opposite of Bob Carrington, where Bob Carrington's flaws are his explosiveness, ability to get downhill, but he has a really refined mid-range game. AJ Johnson is just the inverse, just swap their strengths and weaknesses. Exact same thing. Who else do they have? Keyshawn George is their rookie, who I think is the most ready to be a winning player right now. I think he was actually a serviceable defender. and showed ability as a passer, someone who could shoot the ball a little bit. He also just lacks explosiveness. The issue I have with this Wizards roster is they have very limited athletes. And then the athletes they do have are just very limited in terms of their skill set. So, like, I struggle with where the major upside is in their young guys, but that's why they're tanking. So they can find, like I said, with the Nets, the Darren Peterson, the Kambuza, the AJ DeBanza. That's what they need. Because right now I don't see that on their roster. But I do think they have the makings of a couple decent role players. I would be looking to move for Corey Kispert. I think a contender could use him. But overall, this is a 12 to 14 win Wizards team that isn't going to do anything. Best case scenario, they get the number 1 pick. Worst case scenario, they drop to 5. That's their season. But this season isn't about winning games for them. It's about what pick can they get. So that's where I stand on the Wizards. I think that's where you stand on the Wizards. Before I read Super Chats, I'm going to put this on the screen so everyone can see where these teams ended up, where they landed on our board, I guess. In the contenders category, we had the Cavs, Knicks, and Magic. In the top 6 category, we had the Hawks, Pistons, and Bucks. In the play-in, we actually had 5 teams, which is the Celtics, Pacers, Heat, Sixers, and Raptors. In the lottery, we had the Hornets and Bulls, and the 2 tanking teams are the Nets and Wizards. What I want to do before I read Super Chats, John D, is I want to order this real quick from 1 to 15. So I think we agree the Cavs are number 1. So I want to ask, who do you think is number 2? I know you think it's the Magic, but should I just put the Magic number 2 for you? Is that what I should do? Should I just put the Magic number 2 for you? Oh, okay. Nice. Good work, John D. That's why I'm taking co-host applications, guys. Stuff like this is so unprofessional. Ugh. Are you with me now, John D? You're muted, but are you with me? I don't think he's with me, chat. So unfortunately, I can't order this because I don't want to be a dictator. So what I'm going to do is read Super Chats because this is what I do as an amazing host. NP13 said the record comparison at the end of the season is going to be so evident between conferences that the playoffs need to be 1 through 16. Adam Silver's stock is not high right now. He's on a run of bad choices. I'm just putting this on the screen so I'm not on the full big screen. Yeah, I'm team make it 1 through 16. I think each team should play each other 3 times, 87 game season, 1 through 16 playoffs. That's how I think it should be. But that's not going to happen. It is what it is. We move and prosper. I do think there might be a big disparity in terms of the quality in both conferences. But I also think today we illustrated that the East does have some good teams and quite a few of them. The idea that the East only has like 2 or 3 good teams, I don't think is true. I think they do go quite deep. Just obviously the depth doesn't have as high a ceiling as I think the West does. So I think the West is the better conference. Terry with 2 dads echoed the same sentiment, said this might be the most lopsided the West versus East has ever been. PS Lakers in 5. Obviously, next week we will be talking about both conferences. The Western Conference, we did the East today. The West will be next week. That one, I guess people will be more excited about, but I think this was fun. And then Footy Maniac sent 2 football-related super chats, which I can read. He said, appreciate the Kante and Yaya shout-out Mars, but what made you choose both of them over Gerard, Lampard, Scholes, etc.? Kante is a top 10 mid of the 21st century. The simple answer is I think Kante and Yaya are better than those 3. I think because they're English, those guys get more recognition. But I don't think Gerard, Lampard, and Scholes are better than like Patrick Vieira. So they weren't even like the closest ones to missing out for me. But it is what it is. He then said, what makes you prefer CR7 12 to 14 to peak Neymar? Neymar is a better dribbler, playmaker, ball carrier, and is also an all-time scorer. Is CR7 scoring prowess really that high to make up the gap? I prefer Neymar. I just think Ronaldo is better. The transition stuff, the goal scoring stuff, the versatility. I do think just ultimately just trumps Neymar's ball carrying and playmaking. Although I think Neymar might be one of the best playmakers of all time. That's just my personal opinion. Couple super chats. These are going towards you, John D. So thank you for being back.
Okay, yeah.
Ade Bambo Ade Joby. I think I read that right. I'm a donate because I've been hating in the chat, but John D, you're wrong for this Knicks hate. Brunson has something for you this year. Just wait, New York in 4. You want to address your Knicks hate?
I don't even think it's hate. Like I don't hate the Knicks. I'm just not as high on them. Like I think their offense is going to be good. Like I have questions about their defense. That's my pure questions. If they can show that they can be a good playoff defense with Cat and JB, then I'll be much higher on them.
Well, Hunter feels like you're too low on the Knicks offense. He said, we've been a top 5 defense with Tibbs and Brunson Hearable. Now we have ball movement, a better roster, and finally Cat and JB 2-man game.
I don't know if I'm too low, or in my opinion, I don't think I'm too low on the offense. I just don't think Cat will be used. I don't think Cat hits his ceiling offensively at the 4, and that's my main concern. I think they're still a really good offense. I just think playing Cat at the 4 hinders him personally offensively than it would him playing the 5.
He said both of us are hating on the Knicks offense or too low on the Knicks offense. I said they would be a top 5 offense.
I think they're
what would you want
top
from
10.
me?
Like,
yeah, like what more would you want from me? I said they'll be a top 5 offense. I think I might have said top 3 actually, but like I don't know what more you can want from me to be more optimistic about, to be honest. But anyway, now that you're here, let's order these teams. Okay, so the Cavs are number 1, Knicks or Orlando number 2. Where do you go?
I'm gonna stand on. I'll go Knicks. I'll go Knicks too.
Nice. Okay. And then Orlando will obviously go 3. Atlanta, Detroit, Milwaukee. How do you order this?
I think that's fine. Just like that.
I think Milwaukee's sick. I'm saying it now. I'm doing this in terms of the playoffs, by the way. Like ranking them as playoff teams, not the season. That's what I'm doing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I still think. I think that's good. I would
go with Detroit over Atlanta, maybe.
Okay.
But I'm fine with it saying like this. I'm fine with that. Bucks 6, Pistons 5, Hawks 4. The play-in teams, we do actually need to drop a team out, like for it to logistically make sense. But I do think they are just 5 play-in caliber teams for what it's worth, if that makes sense. So I'm fine keeping it like this. But if we do feel the need to drop a team out, we can. Who do you have as the 7th best team in the East? For me, it's Philly. I'm just putting it out there. Oh. Disappeared on me again, chat. I'm trying, chat. Just want to put it out there. I'm trying. But it looks like it's not. It looks like it's not going to happen. It looks like it's not going to work for us. So I'm gonna do this as quickly as possible since John D is obviously struggling over there. I'm gonna put the Sixers in 7th. I'm gonna go with. I'll go with the Celtics 8th, Pacers 9th, Raptors 10th, Heat 11th, Hornets 12th, Bulls 13, Nets 14, Wizards 15. That's what I'm going to go with. That's just how good I think these teams are looking forward into a playoff situation. The teams that don't make the playoffs, I'm looking at them just in terms of roster talent, versatility, all of that. That's kind of the order I would go with. Don't put too much thought into it. More so just look at the tiers they're in. The order is much more malleable, but the tiers, I think, is what you should pay attention to. But anyway, that just about does it. We was expecting to be an hour and a half. It's now 2 hours 15. But hope you guys enjoyed the first episode of season 3 of the Hoop Talk podcast. Next week will be the Western Conference teams. As John D is not here to plug where you can find him, I will do it for him. You can find him at The Buzzer Sports on YouTube. His link will be in the description. He's a very consistent YouTuber who deserves more subs. So make sure you guys subscribe if you haven't already. You can find me, obviously, here every Sunday for the rest of the season, barring any issues that might lead to some missed weeks. But for the most part, every Sunday. There will be guests throughout the season. Obviously, we try to keep it real hoop talk over here. Try to keep the narratives out of it as much as possible. You can find me on the panel Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern, which is 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific. or if you're in Europe, it's around 4 or 5 p.m. to 7, 8 p.m. Okay. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you next week. Hope you guys enjoyed. Like the stream, leave a comment. Tell me how you would rank these teams, all of that good stuff. Tell us why we hated on your team or why we underrated your team. But thank you guys for watching. Merry Christmas.